Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Tuesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Abbott, of course.
Just made it.
How's just made it? Yeah, I just made it too. I didn't even
ran down the stairs. There's actually stairs here.
Russ has 2 stories out there in St. Louis. I'm back home sweet home, in the home studio again.
You are a funny motherfucker, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, as we said, in the last show, because there was no production going on Monday, Tuesday, I felt like, I should just leave town. So I did. Yesterday was a very long day of traveling, and actually we finally got home today because I had my family dropped off at an undisclosed location that I had to transport them from. So by the time we got there yesterday, it was just kind of a big to-do to get everybody back in the car again and head up to the North Country here. But production does continue on the Uhuru documentary. We are going to get plenty more footage before Russ leaves. So production has been kind of stalled, so we don't have any new footage for you today. But I'm assuming before Russ leaves, we'll have some new footage for you guys to show you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I have footage. I don't know if the iCloud has deigned to receive it yet.
Right.
Because we shot everything in 4K. It's taking like forever for the cloud to take.
Well, you know what you got to do? You got to plug the phone in and put it on Wi-Fi. So when you go to sleep at night, just plug your phone into power and turn the Wi-Fi on. And then the
Wi-Fi's on.
Right. But it mostly has to be plugged in too. So like overnight is when it happens the best because you just go to sleep for 8 hours and it just does the work for 8 hours. Yeah. Yeah, it's got to have a lot of battery for it to do. I don't think it technically has to be plugged in, but it has to have a lot of battery. So the best thing to do is just plug it in.
I mean, usually I plug it in at night. The only problem is, especially being on the road, I will usually wake up about 3 or 4 in the morning.
Right.
And the best thing for putting me back to sleep is this whole subgenre of history for sleep. And the weirdest subgenre of that is, why is the Vatican afraid of demons?
Right.
They'll just have like 3 hours of of like what's in the sub basement at the Vatican.
Right.
That puts me right out.
You can also airdrop it, but I think you need a Mac to do that. So when we meet up, because Shama's coming to the city, maybe I'll bring my laptop down and we can airdrop some of the stuff from your phone to my laptop too. That's one way we could do it. Because that's what I've been doing. I've been airdropping it, which is a pain in the ass because you got to do it manually. But it does go considerably faster than the cloud. So anyway, one way or another, we will have more footage for you guys from St. Louis before Russ leaves. But we got a lot to get to today. 576 strong in the YouTube chat to start things off. 302 filing in over on Rumble. Smash that like button, everybody. Smash that follow button over on Rumble. The subscribe button here on YouTube. This Thursday show will start an hour later than scheduled. It will be a 1 p.m. show, and we will be doing our patron post game after the main show on Thursday. So paid members will get access to 2 bonus segments plus a call-in Q&A Thursday afternoon. So sign up if you haven't yet. That'll be quite a lot of fun. All right, let me set this up here. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, what happened? Here we go. Sorry. Perfect. All right, everybody. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to start out with some terrible news, of course. Israel hits Gaza hospital, killing at least 20 people, including 5 journalists. They end up striking the hospital twice, 2 consecutive times, in what they call a double tap. Israel struck Nasser Hospital in the south of the Gaza Strip on Monday, killing at least 20 people, including 5 journalists who worked for Reuters, the Associated Press, Al Jazeera, and others. Cameraman Hussam al-Masri, a Reuters contractor, was killed near a live broadcasting position operated by Reuters on an upper floor just below the roof of the hospital in Khan Yunis in an initial strike, Palestinian health officials said. Officials at the hospital and witnesses said Israel then struck the site a second time, killing other journalists as well as rescue workers and medics who had rushed to the scene to help. So they call this a double tap, as we'll see in just a moment. Now, we can't show you this video. We're not allowed to show this on YouTube, but I can show you the moment before the second strike. So what you're looking at here, this was broadcast on live TV, just like the second tower hitting the World Trade Center was broadcast on live TV because it was, of course, newsworthy that the first plane hit the tower. So then when all the cameras were rolling, the second plane hit. Same situation kind of here. The strike happened at the hospital. So then that, of course, became a news event. So there were cameras on capturing people who were there to help. And just, within this clip here, it's about a 30-second clip, about 10 seconds in, live on air, Israel bombs civil defense teams as they try to retrieve the body of journalist Hassam al-Masri killed, in an Israeli strike on Nasser Hospital. Ongoing crimes before the eyes of the entire world. So WikiLeaks tweets out what this is referred to. The double tap strike technique is widely regarded as a war crime because it targets first responders, journalists, medics, and rescue workers who are protected under the Geneva Conventions. The attacks aim to deter rescue efforts and inflict further civilian harm. The International Criminal Court considers deliberate strikes on medical or rescue personnel prosecutable war crimes. Well, we saw another version of this just a few months back, which we covered, which was the attack on the medics. I believe 15 medics were executed while trying to help medics who had been previously killed. And so the double tap strategy is, of course, nothing new to the IDF. But this time they actually felt they should issue, I don't know why to say an apology, but some regret, as Netanyahu said. The journalists killed included Mariam Abu Daga, who freelanced for the AP and other outlets, Mohammed Salama, who worked for Qatar-based broadcaster Al Jazeera, Moaz Abu Taha, a freelance journalist who worked with several news organizations, including occasionally contributing to Reuters, and Ahmed Abu Aziz. Photographer Hatem Khaled, also a Reuters contractor, was wounded. So Netanyahu issues the following statement here. Israel deeply regrets the tragic mishap that occurred today at the Nasser hospital in Gaza. Israel values the work of journalists. Oh, sure they do. Medical staff and all civilians. That's why they don't let any journalists in.
Yeah.
Right? Journalists work so much. That's why you can't get in there without an IDF escort. You can get
that's why they're ordering journalists not to take overhead footage of Gaza.
Right. Yeah. And that's also why they ban journalists from taking overhead footage of Gaza. Right. Exactly. The military authorities are conducting a thorough investigation. Our war is with Hamas terrorists. Our just goals are defeating Hamas and bringing our hostages home. So Blakely responds, it was a tragic mishap that you bombed it twice within 20 minutes. Exactly. You bombed it twice.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's not a mishap. That's the dead giveaway. Like I said, just to make the comparison, on 9/11, when the first plane hit the tower, everyone thought, well, that's really strange. How could that happen? Something weird must have went wrong there, but nobody thought it was a terrorist attack until the second plane hit the tower, and then everybody knew, okay, this is an attack. Yeah, when you strike twice, that means it's not a mishap. That means it's not an accident. Of course not. So, in addition to Netanyahu's statement, they sent their new spokesman out here, whoever this guy is, to say the IDF does not intentionally target civilians. So here is their statement following the double tap strike on Nasser Hospital.
IDF troops carried out a strike in the area of Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis.
No, not in the area of Nasser Hospital. You struck the hospital. That's what they did. They struck the hospital, not in the area of Nasser Hospital.
Earlier today, IDF troops carried out a strike in the area of Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. We are aware of reports that harm was caused to civilians, including journalists. I would like to be clear from the start. The IDF does not intentionally target civilians. IDF makes every effort to mitigate harm to civilians while ensuring the safety of our troops. Any incident that raises concern in this regard is addressed by the relevant mechanisms in the IDF. We are operating in an extremely complex reality. Hamas terrorists deliberately use civilian infrastructure, including hospitals, as shields. They have even operated from the Nasser hospital itself.
Any evidence for that? Any documentation for that? They said the same thing about Al-Shifa, and the Washington Post found there was no evidence to back that claim.
Yeah, and I'd also like to point out something that we saw when Iran hit them back a couple months ago is they actually do use their population as human shields because their defense facilities are all peppered throughout these civilian populations.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Hamas began this war, created impossible fighting conditions, and is preventing its end by still holding 50 of our hostages. Having said that, as a professional military committed to international law, we are obligated to investigate our operations thoroughly and professionally.
You're obligated not to blast through civilians. This was the Bill Burr bit, the human shields argument. Well, you have to work around that. You're obligated not to act with wanton disregard for civilian life. Let's say these accusations about human shields are true. The analogy, people have made this a bunch of times. The guy's robbing a bank and has hostages held up in the bank. Is it appropriate to just bomb the bank? Of course not. Of course not. No one would even think to do such a thing. And anyone who ordered that would be a criminal at that point. So, once again, just absurd, just lie after lie, distortion after distortion, but he's got more.
The Chief of the General Staff has instructed that an inquiry be conducted immediately to understand the circumstances of what happened and how it happened. Reporting from an active war zone carries immense risk, especially in a war with a terrorist organization such as Hamas, who cynically hides behind the civilian population. As always, we will present our findings as transparently as possible.
Sure. Just like that. That's what Morlock kept telling us back in the Biden years. They're looking into it. They're looking into it. Finally, in his last press conference, remember the guy asked him, any results from any of those?
Yeah.
No. And then Morlock in that interview, no, we never really heard back. Never really heard back. It's just incredible. What's going on is very obvious, which is the deliberate targeting of journalists. You want to hear an astounding stat? You know how many journalists were killed in World War I? Documented, of course. There could be more that are not documented, but we're dealing with what's documented. Three journalists killed in all of World War I. You know how many journalists were killed in World War II? 67. So the combined world wars, you had 70 confirmed journalists killed. In Gaza, you already have over 200 journalists killed. Triple that of both world wars combined. Think about that. Think about that. Now you say, well, more died in World War I. Well, more may have died here. I mean, there's a lot of bodies unaccounted for at this point, right? Triple the total of both world wars combined.
World's most moral army. What people are seeing more and more, literally almost by the day, is what a sick psychopathic state this is. This is just Nazis sending out a spokesperson to deflect international consequences. That's all this is. They just want to eliminate the Palestinian population. This is really, it's not new. It's just an escalation of what they've been doing for 76 years. Just claim it's complicated. Oh, we're victims. Oh, we try so hard under these terrible circumstances where we're surrounded by these barbarians who want to kill us. But we still uphold our moral values and do so much to try to help them. And on the other end, they're smearing the journalists.
Right.
I just saw today Zionists sharing around video of the reporter, videoing that funeral that they did with the hostages in the coffins, saying this is supporting terrorism. How so? If you're a journalist,
that's your job.
And there's an event, he's not waving a flag around.
Right.
He's not dancing. Literally, they show him filming it as evidence. No, he wasn't really a journalist. He was working for Hamas.
It's just incredible. It's just incredible. Well, the first guy, I forget his name, Anas, I forget Al-Sharif, I think his name is. Pardon me if I got it wrong. I don't think I did. They said that he was a combatant, which is obviously untrue because there were messages, WhatsApp, there were WhatsApp messages from the Israeli authorities to him threatening him that he better leave because they're about to strike where he is. So if he was a combatant, they wouldn't be giving him advance warning. They always say the opposite. They say we warn the civilians so they leave and then we strike the combatants. So if he's a combatant, why are you sending him advance warning that we're going to strike and you have to get out? So no, it's just lie after lie. And yes, smear after smear. So Mukhtar responds to that post for the IDF. They bombed it twice. Stop broadcasting their lies if you're not going to call it out. Yeah, exactly. I mean, at this point, they have no plausible deniability under any circumstance. If they bombed it once, it is now safe to assume when Israel kills a journalist, it's on purpose. That is a safe assumption to make. The fact that they hit this place twice and then they call it a mishap. Yeah. Haaretz, the Israeli paper of record.
Who's going to hold them accountable?
Exactly.
Who's going to hold them accountable? Nobody that matters. We're the sugar daddy. As long as they're good with the sugar daddy, what does it matter?
Exactly.
Like, yeah, it causes some problems for them, for Germany or France to decide not to sell them parts, but they could get those things from us.
Sure.
In the end, it's not crippling.
Right. Exactly. So Haaretz did a write-up on this, and in it, they quote one of the hospital workers here. We were in the middle of surgeries, and it happened. Nasser Hospital Director Atel Al-Hout tells Qatari outlet Al-Arabi that the IDF targeted the complex's surgical center. Again, that is just, I mean, it's one after another. That is a war crime in no uncertain terms. There's no gray area there, nothing. So here's a tweet from RT. Israel says sorry for attacking Nasser Hospital. They didn't exactly say sorry. They said we regret the mishap. I didn't get an apology from Netanyahu. I said we regret that it was a mishap. Killing 20, including 5 journalists, will investigate self as soon as possible. Here's some footage from Mariam Abu Dhaka warning that the IDF intentionally targets journalists. She was killed. She was one of the journalists killed in this strike. Here she is. Oh, sorry. I have to read this. My apologies. I forgot that this was Arab language. Okay, here we go. I am photojournalist Mariam Abu Dhaka from the Gaza Strip. I work as a freelance journalist for the British newspaper Arabia. After the resumption of war, we become more afraid. The occupation truly targets journalists because they show the world the truth. The occupation doesn't want the world to know and see what's happening to us. Like targeting us, killing of children, and a genocide war. So they target journalists to publish only their own videos. Yeah, I mean, I think that is certainly a huge part of it, is that, they don't like that Palestinian people, especially the Palestinian press, is able to get the word out about what's going on. That could be a main motivation, I think.
Of course.
For targeting them. Yeah, obviously, because they're the ones getting the word out. They don't let journalists into Gaza unless they're under IDF supervision. So what do they do about the journalists who are there already because they live there? Yeah, this seems to be their way of dealing with that, and that seems pretty obvious at this point. So Donald Trump found out about this live in front of the cameras. So a reporter asks for his reaction. Let's see what Donald Trump has to say about this attack.
Sir, the Israelis bombed a hospital in Gaza, killed 20 people, including 5 journalists.
When did this happen?
This happened overnight, today.
I didn't know that.
Any reaction to this?
Well, I'm not happy about it. I don't want to see it. At the same time, we have to end that whole nightmare. I'm the one that got the hostages out. I got them out. All of them. Steve Witkoff has been amazing. He's done a great job. But I'm the one that got them all out through my...
You didn't get them all, what planet are we living in here? You didn't get them all out.
People, and through me. And now we're left with probably a little bit less than 20, because I think 1 or 2 are gone. And I said a long time ago, I'm going to get them out, but when we get down to that final 10 or 20, these people aren't going to release them because they're dead after they release them. So it's a nasty situation. Very nasty, horrible thing.
Horrible thing. Thank you for that. Yeah, we understand it's a horrible thing. So what you seem to be hearing there is that there is no plan to end this nightmare. There's no plan. And even Trump says they're not going to give the hostages back because they know they're dead once they're due. Okay, so you're basically giving up on ceasefire talks, which is what came out in the press a couple months ago. So at this point, the decision is, do you continue to foot the bill for this and fund it further, or do you cut them off? And it seems pretty obvious which direction this country is going to go in. And even as state after state after state is forced to issue one symbolic statement or another, whether it's recognition of a Palestinian state or condemning these attacks, it just goes on. It just goes on, and there's nothing new to say about it at this point, except you have to report these events as they happen, because I think we owe it to the victims to bear witness to it and to spread the word about it. But beyond that, yeah, it's just a horror.
I think overall, keeping people's eyes on it is having a devastating impact on the Israeli state, particularly its economy, which I think is the thing that is best targeted if you want to take down the Israeli state, because you're not getting the United States to stop giving them weapons. So how do you gut them to the point that they can't function? You have to make it such a pariah state that nobody wants to live there, nobody wants to visit there, nobody wants to invest there. And we have seen signs of that. Mass bankruptcies. According to a lot of reports, there's no economy there anymore. Who's going to go there as a tourist now? We see more and more reports. I haven't gotten to it. I want to do a roundup of all these incidents of Israeli tourists being shunned everywhere they go around the world. Who's going to want to be a part of that? Who's going to want that for their kids? So yes, but you're right. It can all feel very hopeless and desperate when you see that they're just pushing forward because they can. As long as we support them, we can. That's why it's so absurd anytime Biden and now Trump pretended we don't have complete control of this situation. One phone call from the American president, you stop this today or we're completely cutting off all aid, it's over. Right. It's over. That's all it would take. It's over that day.
Yep. No question about it. No question about it. Hey, you want that Iron Dome functioning? You have to stop right now. And that's it.
Yep.
That's the end.
Yep.
It's as simple as that, really.
Right. And we're the only country in that position. This is why a lot of people say, why do you focus so much on this? This is why.
Right.
This is why, because we're so directly responsible for it as a nation.
Of course. Yes. Okay. We'll go to some super chats and some Rumble rants. Up the Reds. Thank you for the $9.99. Says greetings from South Jersey. Also Liverpool Football Club 2 games in a row. So I'm in a great mood. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Well, congratulations, Up the Red. Glad you're doing well. R2 Deepu, thanks for the $5. Says made a Bollywood style music video called Metal Gear Zoran. Escape for New York. Check it out. R2 Deepu. Courage. All right. Thank you. Matrix says you're a hobbit, Keaton. Sphincter Knuckle Buster. Thank you, Matrix. Yes. Yes, you saw the video. Eric Rousseau says forget about genocide, war, famine, police state, etc. Taylor Swift is engaged. Yeah, my wife told me that just a few minutes before the show. She said you should congratulate her. So congratulations. Well, she married the football guy, right? So there you go. Okay. There you go. Now, what if the marriage goes really well and it lasts really long and she loses her inspiration to write songs? What if she can't write songs anymore? Because isn't that like her genre, like breakup songs? You know, mostly.
She can't write songs now.
Well, they do pretty well now. Some people like them, so maybe she'll lose the muse. Maybe
you've seen Idiocracy, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know,
her music is the equivalent of people buying a ticket to go watch a movie with an ass farting.
Hillary Hitton says, dirtbags, at the risk of making your heads explode, ponder this. F, marry, kill Christine Ohm, Hillary, or Brigitte Macron. Sorry about the dirtbags thing. Well, you need more information from Macron, obviously. Yeah. Eric Rousseau, did Huckabee... You don't know
what we're working with there.
Yeah, you don't know what you're working with there. Eric Rousseau, did Huckabee submit to the loogie sacrament? Israeli loogie porn. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that very much. All right, we will move right on along here.
All right, so you might remember a few months ago, a judge ordered the release, as Jack Posobiec puts it, wrongly, alleged human trafficker. He's not an alleged human trafficker, by the way, not even by the government's charges. Kilmar, Maryland dad, Abrego Garcia, pending trial. You know, there are a lot of things out there afoot these days that demonstrate a certain decline in the intellectual fiber of the nation. There are a few of them that I more connect to the way social media hypnotizes people into feeling like they belong to some club, and it kind of eases their loneliness and social isolation. Nothing demonstrates that to me more than the way all these people picked up on the phrase Maryland man, the way they all just parroted that. Yeah, he's a Maryland man. He's not a Maryland man. He's not a Maryland man.
Yeah.
All right. So, as per the judge's order, it took a few months of the government fighting for him not to be released. But finally, he was released last week after not seeing his family for 160 days. So here was their very emotional reunion.
El pueblo unido jamás será vencido.
Imagine that, man. This guy's been to CCOT.
Oh, yeah. These people probably thought they would never see him again.
Yep. So that didn't last long. This is from Homeland Security. He's been dropping a lot of bangers. Today, Secretary Noem announced that ICE arrested Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He will be processed for removal to Uganda. So he was out, I believe, on Thursday, and they ordered him to report to ICE on Monday, where they arrested him. Sanctuary politicians and the fake news won't tell you the truth about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a MS-13 gang member, human trafficker. This is coming from Homeland Security. Again, he is not even charged with human trafficking. And this is coming from an official government account. Wife beater, child predator, no evidence for this, and criminal illegal alien. So here is before photo of the pinhead for Beetlejuice, Tom Homan, going on Fox to talk about what they're going to do to this horrible, horrible man, Abrego Garcia. So horrible, they don't want to prove their case in court. They seem to be doing everything possible to avoid that.
He is absolutely going to be deported from this country. He's not going to walk the streets of this nation, so he can enjoy the little time he has with his family. And for the person who says we're not going to separate family, well, his family can go with him because he's leaving. He's going to be deported. Look, he's a criminal alien. He's a member of MS-13, which is now a designated terrorist. He's a white beater. He's a human trafficker. He's been indicted for human trafficking and alien smuggling. He's a bad person.
Okay, that is literally not true. That is literally not true, even by the government's own charges. And this guy is in charge of rounding up all of these illegal immigrants, and he doesn't even know what the charges are against this man, or doesn't care. Like, hey, I'm not a lawyer. Seems to me, when all's said and done, Abrego Garcia should have a hell of a lawsuit against all of these people for claiming this.
Oh, yeah, defamation, if nothing else.
It is defamation. It's not true. It's literally not true. He just said he's indicted on human trafficking. That is literally not true.
He's not going to be here. He's been order removed twice. Order removed by 2 different federal judges. He's going to leave this country in the very near future, and his family can go with him. I can't see who was talking before the sound bites, but whoever said we're taking advantage of broken immigration system, what do they do? What do those people do the last 4 years about this broken immigration system? They let 10.5 million people cross that border. Sex trafficking women and children, all-time high. Overdose deaths of fentanyl, all-time high. Number of terrorists, all-time high. They didn't do anything to fix it. President Trump is keeping his promise to American people to enforce the law, and that's what we're doing. We're making this country safer every day by removing people like Abrego Garcia.
Hey, just to follow up, Tom.
I'm sorry, I just have to pause. The failings of the Biden administration does not give you permission to do whatever you want, right? To just do whatever you want and abuse people however you want. And second, I just have to make a very quick point, because this goes back to when they said that the Israelis said that journalist was a hostile combatant. They're saying that this guy could take his family with him and they can go live somewhere else. Well, if he's MS-13, then doesn't he belong in jail, right? You guys tried to send him to CCOT under the pretext he was MS-13. That fell apart, so you had to bring him back after fighting with the courts. So if his family can go with him and he can live his life somewhere, what you're saying is that he's not MS-13. Like they have no coherent case to make. That's why they tried to just disappear this guy at a torture dungeon in El Salvador and be done with it, because they have no case. And so now everything they say looks and sounds even more desperate because they got caught in the initial lie and had to bring him back. Sorry.
It's worse than no case. It's worse than no case. It's if they go to court, and I have some stuff about this, they're going to have to reveal what they did to get the indictment in the first place, and they do not want people really looking at that. But we'll get into that.
Okay.
To be clear, is Abrego Garcia headed to Uganda? The lawyers apparently telling the AP that DHS notified on Friday at 4 p.m. that they may remove him to Uganda in 72 hours. Can you confirm that?
Look, Uganda's on the table. We'll see. I mean, you know, the DOJ's, you know, our immigration attorneys and the judges, they're all in negotiations, and we'll see what happens. But Uganda's on the table. We have an agreement with them. It's on the table, absolutely.
All right. I'm going to prove to you right now how little they actually care about workers or solving this problem. Have you seen any employers get arrested? Why would you come here if you can't get employment? Have you seen them push to have a solid e-verify system that's federal, nationwide? Have you seen them push for a law like that would put the onus on white-collar crime, that would put the onus on corporations, that would put the onus on the wealthy who employ these people, and then you go to jail if you employ them? Wouldn't that solve the problem without having to spend billions of dollars expanding the carceral state, hiring all these agents? You could solve the problem like that. E-verify. If you break the law as an employer, you go to jail. That's it. You lock up a few employers, it'll be over. That's it. That's it. If there's no reason to come here, nobody's going to come here. Do you see them doing that? Do you see them? Why? When they go and round up these workers, why aren't they arresting the employers at the same time? Why are the employers not arrested? Right? They don't want to solve the problem. Even if you are supportive of the idea that these immigrants are taking jobs away, you think Americans are going to go pick strawberries and they're going to pay $50 an hour, which is probably about what it would take to get a lot of Americans to go out in the fields and work 12 hours a day picking strawberries. You think that's a feasible thing? They're not trying to do that. If they were trying to do that, they would do it efficiently, and the most efficient way is to go after the employers, not to go running around the fields trying to grab people piecemeal like this. That's a dog and pony show to give you the illusion that they're doing something. And all of that has landed on the unlikely shoulders of this man.
Right.
So here is Kristi Noem, Secretary Duck Lips there. President Trump is not going to allow Kilmar Abrego Garcia, an illegal alien who is an MS-13 gang member, human trafficker, again, serial domestic abuser, and child predator to terrorize American citizens. Today, ICE arrested this Salvadoran man and are processing him for deportation to Uganda. The American people are safer without this MS-13 gangbanger in our country roaming freely on our streets. No more. Good riddance. So here's what she had to say.
It either, Sean, and in fact, let's not forget that Abrego Garcia also solicited minors, children, for naked pictures, for pornography. I mean, he's a sick individual that's known to be a terrorist and a human trafficker. And these Democrats and liberals stand beside him. They sing for him. They chant for him to be released so that he can perpetuate more crimes on our communities. It's just overwhelmingly these woke activists will be rejected. And they will not be elected or supported by the American people, because I'm out on the streets every single day with our law enforcement officers. I'm out there talking to individuals and meeting with victims of these crimes, and they're so thankful that they have President Trump in the White House. They're so thankful that they have a president that's finally enforcing the law and putting American citizens first, not terrorists like Abrego Garcia.
Yeah, well, the numbers don't show that. We've done a few segments showing how, from being their strongest issue, immigration is rapidly becoming one of their weakest because they're doing things like this. And most people don't follow Jack Posobiec or Gunther Eagleman. Most people have better things to do, and they can see that what you're doing is insane, deranged, inhumane, and not likely to even solve the problem that you claim you're doing this to solve. And these are not the least vindictive people in the world. If there's one thing that Trump and the collection of criminals, freaks, weirdos, and crackpots that he calls a cabinet love, it's owning the libs, right? They love to own the libs. How could you own the libs any more than to bring this man into court and prove that all these things are true about him? Don't you think if they had a case, they'd be chomping at the bit to try this case to make Chris Van Hollen cry? Like, don't you think they'd want this in court? Why are they going to such an extreme to avoid bringing this to court?
Well, at first they said they were going to. At first they said, well, okay, fine. At first they were not going to bring him back. Then when they agreed to bring him back, okay, we're going to bring him back and he's going to stand trial and he's going to face justice. Right. And then that big report came out, which we covered, showing that so much of their case.
Yeah, we're getting into that.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I didn't think you had that this time. All right, go ahead.
Yep. If he's a human trafficker, why not charge him and send him to trial? Well, this is why. This is from the judge's report on why she was ordering him released pending his trial. The court gives little weight to this hearsay testimony. Double hearsay through Special Agent Joseph's testimony of the male cooperator, a two-time previously deported felon and acknowledged ringleader of a human smuggling operation, who has now obtained for himself an early release from federal prison and delay of a 6th deportation by providing information to the government. Nor do the hearsay statements of the second male cooperator on this issue fare any better, as his requested release from jail and delay of another deportation depends on providing information the government finds useful. Even without discounting the weight of the testimony of the first and second male cooperators for the multiple layers of hearsay, their testimony and statements defy common sense. Now, we're going to go on a little bit with what she says next, but listen to what she just said. In order to, in my opinion, frame this guy as a human smuggler, it's not trafficker, by the way, it's smuggler. That's what they're actually charging him with. There's a difference. They actually released people who are convicted and guilty of that crime, who have actually been convicted of that crime in a court of law. So in order to try to save face and not admit that they made a terrible mistake sending this guy to CCOT, Instead, they're going to frame him by releasing people who have been convicted of the crime that they are very weakly accusing him of. This is the most obvious thing in the world. You offer a jailhouse snitch a shorter sentence for testimony. They're going to give you testimony. Of course, they're going to give you testimony. She goes on. Both male cooperators stated that other than 3 or 4 trips total without his children, Abrego typically took his children with him during the alleged smuggling trips from Maryland to Houston and back, some 2,900 miles round trip. We can't even keep Keaton's kids quiet for the show.
Yeah, right.
And this guy's supposed to be taking kids 2,900 miles round trip with a in a packed car with people that he's smuggling back and forth from across the border. As often as 3 or 4 times a week, he's doing 2,900 mile round trips, which physically, I've driven cross country. That's not even possible. You'd have to be on some serious crank to be doing that. The sheer number of hours that would be required to maintain this schedule, which would consistently be more than 120 hours per week of driving time, approach physical impossibility. For that additional reason, the court finds that the statements of the first and second male cooperators are not reliable to establish that this case involves a minor victim. You see how they keep saying he solicited the pictures from minor. This is where this is coming from. A couple of convicted human smugglers that they kept in the country in order to get this kind of testimony with these kinds of outlandish claims. This is why they're doing this. Because if they go into court with this, they're going to be a fucking laughingstock. They have no case. And what any media person or politician with any sense is going to do is hone right in on this. The fact that they literally let people guilty of what they're accusing him of go in order to make a trumped up case against him. No pun intended. Just a little bit more from a New York Times article about this at the time. The government alleges that Abrego Garcia is a longtime well-known member of MS-13, Judge Holmes wrote, adding, but Abrego has no reported criminal history of any kind, and his reputed gang membership is contradicted by the government's own evidence. In one of the more salacious moments of his testimony earlier this month, Mr. Joseph said that Mr. Abrego Garcia had sought to engage in, quote, sexually inappropriate behavior with some of his female passengers. In her ruling freeing Mr. Abrego Garcia, the judge pushed back forcefully against these accusations, saying she gave no weight to this evidence. So this is from the National Desk. They put together a very good video summing up what occurred on Monday when Abrego Garcia showed up to report to ICE detention. We'll take a look at that.
When I was detained, I remembered memories with my family.
Para seguir luchando.
Those moments will continue to give me hope to continue in this fight.
Following his release from federal custody on Friday, Gilmar Abrego Garcia walking into ICE offices in downtown Baltimore alongside his wife Monday morning. Moments later, she'd walk out alone.
Mr. Abrego Garcia was taken into custody by ICE this morning.
The El Salvadoran national detained once again after declining a deal to plead guilty to human smuggling charges in exchange for resettling in Costa Rica. Court filings showing Costa Rica agreed to welcome him in as a refugee. But with that offer seemingly off the table, the Trump administration appearing to move forward with plans to deport him to Uganda as early as Wednesday.
Unless and until he has had a full and fair trial in an immigration court as well as his full appeal rights. Unless and until they have gone through that process, they do not have the right to put him on an airplane.
Abrego Garcia's attorney filing an emergency lawsuit attempting to block his detention and potential deportation. This case becoming a flashpoint in the debate over Trump's immigration crackdown after Abrego Garcia was mistakenly deported to El Salvador in March. The federal government claiming he's a violent domestic offender and MS-13 gang member who's helped smuggle undocumented immigrants into the U.S. But his attorneys argue there's little evidence to prove those claims, calling the charges vindictive and preposterous.
The fact that they're holding, Costa Rica as a carrot and using Uganda as a stick to try to coerce him to plead guilty to a crime is such clear evidence that they're weaponizing the immigration system in a manner that is completely unconstitutional.
In response, the Trump administration releasing private plea deal discussions, arguing the defense is being dishonest by publicly portraying the talks as coercive, when in fact, they were close to reaching a deal.
He beat the hell out of his wife. His wife is afraid to even talk about him. She's been mauled by this animal. And, through a system of liberal courts, he's doing things, but no, we have that under control.
Judge Paula Zinnes ultimately issuing a temporary restraining order until a hearing is held to assess whether Abrego Garcia can legally contest his removal. Zinnes raising concerns sending him to Uganda instead of his country of choice could violate immigration law. Zinnes also noting Uganda has not vowed to redeport him to El Salvador, unlike Costa Rica.
Regardless of your immigration status, we all have in this country.
Okay, so give them a follow. They did a very good job with that report. So this is just a little bit about the order. Under that new order, the judge said the government will be absolutely forbidden to refuse to remove Abrego Garcia from the continental United States. Zinnes said she was also worried that sending Abrego Garcia to Uganda would result in an end run around a court order, barring him from again being sent to El Salvador. It's unclear how long the new pause will last, but it's likely to remain in effect through at least later this week. The judge has said she wants to receive more written legal arguments from the Justice Department and Abrego Garcia's attorneys. She's also planning to hold an evidentiary hearing with witnesses in coming days. So Pramila Jayapal had a little back and forth with Homeland Security that's been obsessed with this in their Twitter feed. She says, "This is fantastic news, and I am thrilled for Kilmer Abrego Garcia." So they quote tweet her. "DHS is thrilled that this MS-13 gang member, human trafficker, wife beater, and child predator is being processed for removal to Uganda." It's getting to a level that it's really just deranged. Representative Mark Harris. "Kilmer Abrego Garcia will likely be deported soon, and America will be safer for it. Never forget the media painted him as a man. When any of these titles would have been more honest. MS-13 gang member, wife beater, human trafficker, Salvadoran illegal aliens." So I want you to understand, people like Mark Harris wrap themselves up in the flag. These people are un-American in the truest sense of that word. They do not believe in a person's right to defend themselves in a court of law before charges are used against them as if they were guilty. He is being treated as someone who is presumed guilty, and the elected and appointed officials in the government are using the power of the state against this man with no due process. And this is something a lot of the Maryland Man crew don't seem to understand. It's not about him. It's about you. It's about you. If you're assuming they're not going to do it to you, well, you're also assuming that they're building a multi-billion-dollar U.S. police force that they're just going to disband when they're done with the immigrants. I don't think that's a very safe assumption based on history. So Andrew Egger here, he's a reporter with the Bulwark, responded to this. I am going to continue to point out until I am blue in the face that if the federal government had reason to believe Kilmar Abrego Garcia was a human trafficker, it would have charged him with human trafficking, which it didn't. He is not even charged with that. And all of these high-ranking government officials are repeating and repeating this charge, which, again, I hope Abrego Garcia files one hell of a lawsuit down the road. Okay, so to prove to you how dishonest this is, all right, so there's a little bit of, we saw some of this in that longer video. I'd really like to know how much of Trump's dick this reporter has at the back of his throat who asked this question. But then you're gonna see Pam Bondi, like a lawyer, call it what it is. She's careful not to say he's charged with human trafficking.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, MS-13 gangbanger and human trafficker Kilmar Abrego Garcia turned himself in in Baltimore. Could you comment on this, and why are the Democrats so emotionally attached to this man who beats his wife and is part of a terrorist organization?
Because they think he's going to be good for votes, and I think he's very bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
He's not good for votes.
That's great
for votes. He beat the hell out of his wife. His wife is afraid to even talk about him. She's been mauled by this animal. And, through a system of liberal...
Man, if this was true, you'd think this would be the perfect opportunity to get away from him, right?
Right.
I don't think
Right.
she'd be,
exactly,
she'd be showing up to support this guy. Would she be thanking you guys, right? And
Right.
you would, oh my God.
You'd bring her to the
love
Oval
that.
Office. Yeah.
But they would. They'd
Yeah.
bring her, yes, we saved this woman from Abrego Garcia. They would love it.
Courts. He's doing things, but...
You're doing
no,
commentary on Fox with Riley Gaines by next year.
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly.
You want to
Yeah.
comment on it?
No, we've got him under control. He will no longer terrorize our country. He's currently charged with human smuggling, including children. The guy needs to be in prison. He doesn't need to be on the streets like all these liberals want him to be. And as part of this operation here in D.C.,
Again.
we've also taken off MS-13 members. We've taken, I think just last night, we got a TDA guy off our streets right here, right around from where we all work. Another TDA member gone because of this project.
Yeah.
Well,
Even that criminal AG will not call it human trafficking.
Well, she says he belongs in jail. Costa Rica agreed to take him in as a refugee. If they're taking him in as a refugee, that implies he would just kind of get to live his life there, meaning he wouldn't be in jail. So then why is the United States okay with that arrangement? If he belongs in jail, then why would he be allowed to walk free and live a normal life in Costa Rica? Like, this is what I mean.
They know they're going to be humiliated if they bring this into a court.
They can't get their bullshit straight on this. They can't.
Right.
Like, if he's a criminal, if he's guilty of all the things you say he's guilty of, then why would you agree to any arrangement where he is not in jail? Why would you say, oh, yeah, Costa Rica, yeah, you take him in, he'll be a refugee, and he can, hang out.
And why are you going out of your way to offer a plea? Why would you do that? The trial's supposed to be in January. Just a few months.
Yeah.
Right? You can hold him in ICE detention until then. As far as I can tell, the judges cannot get him free from the ICE detention the way they can from the criminal system. So you hold him, and he gets tried in January, and you get exonerated. You get to own the libs, right? You get to own the libs. It's your favorite thing, right? You can have the whole coffee mug, the liberal tears, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You can all hold one up, right? The fact that they're not doing that tells you they have no case against this man. That in and of itself. What would they prefer? To give this guy a plea deal after all of these claims that they've made, or own the libs by exposing him as being everything they say he is in a court? They can't.
And honestly, even if they did prove that he is everything they say he is, it really wouldn't be owning the libs that much, because most of what people have said is that he deserves due process and a fair trial. So if you come and you prove your case,
well,
then
that's
fine.
true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but they don't
would
think
take
like
it that
that.
way. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
they would
they
take
don't
it
think
that way.
that way.
Yeah. And neither do most people, to be honest, to be fair.
So Chris Van Hollen, along with a few others, all Democrats, said after he got arrested again, ICE is holding Kilmar Abrego Garcia and refusing to answer questions from his lawyers, while the Trump administration continues to spread lies about his case. Instead of spewing unproven allegations on social media, they need to put up or shut up in court. Mr. Abrego Garcia must be allowed to defend himself. Homeland Security rounds up tweets from different Democrats, Elizabeth Warren, Van Hollen, what's her name down there?
I can't.
Crockett. That's right.
Yeah,
Jasmine Crockett.
Too small. I couldn't read it. Yeah.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia is not and will never be a American. He is a criminal, illegal alien from El Salvador and public safety threat. It is insane that sanctuary politicians chose to glorify and stand with an MS-13 gang member over the safety of American citizens. Trump and Secretary Noem are not going to allow this illegal alien, and again, who is an MS-13 gang member, human trafficker, serial domestic abuser, child predator, to terrorize American citizens any longer. You know, it's pretty funny that this guy was terrorizing American citizens and he's literally never been charged with a crime.
Right. Yeah.
Forget much less convicted, never charged with a crime. How did he run around terrorizing people? Never get charged. This is how sick and vindictive they are. They released this video of him in cuffs with the quote over it, "He doesn't belong here. He won't be staying here. America is a safer nation without this MS-13 gangbanger in it. Good riddance." Here's the video they tweeted out with that. Says government corrupt. So look, to be fair, we always want to be fair. They know the quality of their voters, or they wouldn't be sending stuff like this out. They know what their people like. They know what they're. That's who that's for, man. Normal Americans see this and they see how sick it is. You got a problem with this guy. You say he is all the things that you say he is. Shut up and put up. Go to court. That's all. Go to court. Prove it, man. Prove it. And as you point out, that's not a defeat for what I want. I want due process. Like, I don't know this guy. I'm not personally, emotionally invested in whether he's a criminal or not a criminal. Based on the evidence that I've seen, it looks like you're railroading him to try to make a point and to try to save face. But hey, man, if you went into court and proved that and he got 25 years, I'd be fine with that too. Just go to court. That's all. The fact that they have to put all this drama around it just tells you they have no case. As the judge pointed out, they cannot take, this is why they're offering them a plea deal. You can't take this to court without any defense attorney bringing out, well, who are your witnesses? Hang on. You gave them a deal, people who actually were proven smugglers,
right?
And you, just in order to get this guy, even their voters are going to have a hard time swallowing that. Although, you know, they seem to be making some headway, making them accept that the Epstein files are never coming out. So maybe they can make them swallow that too.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you would just be dealing with those who are in a cult and will never turn on Trump no matter what, because so much of this is just abject racism. I'm sorry. Like, it is. Like, so much of this is that these people don't care what happens to this guy because he's not white and he wasn't born here. So it's just nativism and racism. That's a lot of it. However, the fact that they let other human traffickers go so they can get this guy, that might even piss off some of the racists, because what'd you let the other two guys out for, right? So at that point, it's beyond just the nativist, you know, the white nationalist, base, if you want to call it that. And at this point, I will call it that, because that is really what remains of Trump support. And that is pretty much according to the polls, by the way.
The Epstein Files thing was basically the Mueller report.
Yeah, that was the
what
last.
The Mueller report was for
exactly,
Democrats, where only the dumbest of the dumb were left after the Mueller report. That's what the Epstein Files is for MAGA.
Right. That was like the last filtering out of anyone with any kind of brain and conscience. Or conscience, I would say, not even and necessarily. But yeah, you're talking about like even those die-in-the-wool racists are going to be pissed off if it ever becomes common knowledge in the country that they let these other two guys go in order to sing about him. So at that point, the only people left to buy this are the people who are in the cult of Donald Trump vis-a-vis Jack Posobiec, Benny Johnson, like just people who are hypnotized by the grifter media class, for whom support for Trump is, fills a hole in them personally that they need filled.
That's it.
Just weak people who need to feel whole by associating with an alpha male. That is essentially it. That's essentially, and that is essentially Trump's base at this point. It really is. It's really not much broader than that. All right, is that everything?
That's everything.
All right, that's a wrap on that one. All right, Mr. Mad Brown Cow, thanks for the $5. Appreciate that. Hit 'em far, thanks for the $2. Says, you think Trump has abandoned plans for Trump Gaza? Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. CEB Applejack. Oh, yeah, that's right. I meant to. I will promote this now. We're going to do it later in the show. But now that you mentioned it, CEB Applejack says, support my feature on Due Dissidence tomorrow at 8 p.m. with Misty. Great work, Russ and Keaton. As a New Yorker from Harlem, I support you guys. That's right. So Applejack has a report that's going to be featured on the Misty Winston show tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on our Rumble channel. That's the Misty Winston show. So we'll head over to our Rumble channel and smash that follow button. And also join our Substack newsletter so you get the alert before the show goes live. But Applejack is Misty's guest for the evening tomorrow. And then she'll be covering some of the Nasser hospital strike, as well as some other issues as well. But Applejack's report is the banner piece of the show tomorrow. So check that out, the Misty Winston show on Rumble tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And thanks for checking in, Applejack. Charles H., thanks for the $5. It's time we call for international M intervention against I to open free, restore the state taken. YouTube censorship is crazy. Oh, okay. Did you use some abbreviations there? I was a little confused. Thank you. ARJ 1997, thanks for the $5, says the regret for the double tap strike was because they were caught on camera. Otherwise, there would just be silence from them and the corporate media. Yes, of course. Okay, let's take some Rumble rants here. R.I.P. Jerry Adler. Hesh, yes, from The Sopranos. He was 96.
Yeah.
He was just a fucking kid. Yeah, he was just a kid. Yeah, he went too soon. Yeah. I didn't know he had still been alive. But yes, that's right. He had passed away. Nocturnal Human says drug-addicted Americans' lack of personal responsibility is responsible for terrorizing innocent families now. It's Americans who are choosing to buy the drugs. Professor Brown, no. Benny Johnson's house at 6 o'clock. Honey, I'm homo. Good. Thank you, Professor Brown. Nocturnal Human says, I apologize for speaking without nuance about drug addiction. There are situations which are beyond people's control, but my problem is with shifting blame onto immigrants. Professor Brown notes says, Keaton not going up the St. Louis Arch, etc. Now that Manya is dead, she could be traveling to other dimensions or whatever. Trust me, that woman is not traveling to other dimensions. Thank you, Professor Brown Note. Appreciate that. All right. While we are paused here, let me do a quick. Where did it go? I lost it. Hold on. I'll find it. Here we go. All right. Quick read for Westwood 1. That's right. Okay, so the countdown is over. The rivalries are real, and the road to the championship begins on August 23rd. Westwood One Sports brings you every electrifying moment of NCAA football, from the first snap to the final whistle. Top teams, big plays, unforgettable Saturdays. Don't miss a second of the action. Listen to NCAA football on rumble.com, the Westwood One Sports app, on WestwoodOneSports.com via Westwood One station streams or by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports. If it's sports, it's on Westwood One. Okay, great. Nailed it. Well done. They want a strict read. That's what I gave them. All right. Boom. Boom. Taken care of. Okay. Let's move right on along here. $1 Million Trooper says, turns my stomach to agree with Neocon Rag the Bulwark, but we live in strange times. Yes, indeed. Thank you, $1 Million Trooper. Appreciate the donation there. Okay. All right. We're going to move right on along. Trump was very excited yesterday when he was handed an executive order for him to sign. And it sounds like from this video, he found out what it was in real time and then spoke about it without knowing very much about it. But this was the big news yesterday. Trump very excited to crack down on the epidemic of flag burning in this country.
Everywhere.
This is an executive order on flag burning. It charges your attorney general.
Would you listen to this? This is very important. Flag burning. All over the country, they're burning flags. All over the world, they burn the...
Yeah, that's true. When we were in St. Louis, every other block, they're just burning flag. Like, you can't walk any. It's crazy. You know?
Yeah. We had, it was right across from your hotel, Burning Flag Deli. And there was like a burning American flag on one of those blow up man used car signs. Yeah.
This is everywhere you go. Yeah.
American flag. And as you know, through a very sad court, I guess it was a 5-4 decision. They called it freedom of speech, but there's another reason, which is
referring to Texas versus Johnson, which was in the 80s, which we're going to get a little more into in the next segment. But yes, the court did uphold that people have the constitutional right to burn a flag because it's a means of expression.
Perhaps much more important, it's called death. Because what happens...
Okay. I got to back that up. Sorry.
For decision, they called it freedom of speech, but there's another reason, which is perhaps much more important, it's called death. Because what happens when you burn a flag is the area goes crazy. If you have hundreds of people, they go crazy. You could do other things. You can burn this piece of paper. You can, but when you burn the American flag, it incites riots at levels that we've never seen before. People go crazy. In a way, both ways. There are some that are going crazy for doing it. There are others that are angry.
Okay. Take a pause. Anybody who takes this with any modicum of seriousness, take a pause and ask yourself, when and where has this been happening? He just said people are burning flags all over the place and that it's causing violence and riot. Where? Has anyone heard of any of this going on? Don't you think you'd have heard about an incident of this? I mean, it would certainly be national news if a flag burning incited one riot in one small town anywhere in America. Nobody's heard anything about, like,
you never see flag burning back. Okay, this came a big item on the national menu under Bush the First, and I directed a production of The Adding Machine, and kind of in response to Bush's effort to make flag burning illegal, I wanted to burn a flag on stage. Half my cast wouldn't do it.
Right.
Like even people who consider themselves left, like they don't want to fuck with that. So you almost never see that. You almost never see a flag burning, even at a protest.
You need to put me in touch with some of those cast members. Maybe we can talk about you, talk about the trials and tribulations of working under the direction of Russell Doppler. Do an expose. Be curious
and
to
I
see.
had people there who were like, yeah, my father was in the service. He wouldn't like it.
Oh, so they were like offended by it. I thought they were afraid to go to jail. Okay, so they were like afraid. They were offended by it. They didn't want to do it.
Well, they didn't feel. I mean, some of them didn't feel it was appropriate or have relatives who'd be so offended by it.
Right.
You know, and this is not like a rah-rah America play. It's really an indictment of early modernism, of the early modern era. You know, the whole get up, go to work, become mechanized by routine. That's what the whole play is. And, you know, it definitely takes a shot at what today we would think of as MAGA. There's a lot of them giving these very racist speeches about immigrants and non-whites and Catholic at that time, Catholics and Irish and were included in that. So they have a lot of these very racist monologues in it. It would actually be kind of hard to do it today because like they use the N word. What do? Do you take it out? Do you leave it in? But all that was there, but the flag burning was a bridge too far for people in the show, man. I wasn't able to do it.
Well, it's funny. I forget if we have it in the slideshow. Maybe we do. But somebody tweeted out something to the effect of that, yeah, this is Trump recycling an old culture war issue from the 80s and 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Which would make sense. Yep. All right. So here he goes.
About them doing it. Do you want to discuss that?
Sure. So what the executive order does, sir, it charges your Department of Justice with investigating instances of flag burning, and then where there's evidence of criminal activity, where prosecution wouldn't fall afoul of the First Amendment, and instructs the Department of Justice to prosecute those who are engaged in these instances of flag burning.
Okay, so Trump is too stupid to understand what he was just told. But what the text of the order says is that flag burning is not banned. So this is not a flag burning ban. What he's doing is he's instructing the Department of Justice to investigate incidents of flag burning to see if there's an underlying crime that could be prosecuted. In other words, if the intention was to incite a riot or something. So they're not saying the very act of flag burning is now banned. They're just now looking at this the way, and they argue, as we'll get into this later, Democratic administrations have investigated like pride flag burning, right? It's not that you are not allowed to burn a pride flag, but you're not allowed to, walk into a gay rights meeting, burn a pride flag, and then threaten people in the meeting, right? So they want to investigate flag burning in that way. Of course, Trump would not be satisfied with that, and he probably didn't understand what he was just told. So Trump goes ahead and just blurts out what he wishes the executive order is, which is 1 year in jail if you burn a flag.
And what the penalty is going to be, if you burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail.
Okay, the order does not say that. He's just now saying what he wishes it said, right?
So he's just making that up, like out of his ass.
Yeah, the order doesn't say that.
Engaged in these instances of flag burning.
And what the penalty is going to be, if you burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail, no early exits, no nothing. You get 1 year in jail. If you burn a flag, you get, and what it does is incite to riot. I hope they use that language, by the way. Did they?
He doesn't even know what it says.
Incite to riot.
I hope they use that language. He's about to sign this. He clearly hasn't read it. Clearly doesn't know anything that's in it. Yeah, I hope that's in there. He's signed into law.
Burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail. You don't get 10 years. You don't get 1 month. You get 1 year in jail, and it goes on your record. And you will see flag burning stopping immediately, just like when I signed the Statute and Monument Act. 10 years in jail if you hurt any of our beautiful monuments. Everybody left town. They were gone. Never had a problem after that. It's pretty amazing. We stopped it. But this is something.
Yeah, it's funny. Like if you make outrageous, over-the-top threats against people, you can control them. Like that's that's quite a revelation. Like, yeah, if I told my kids eat your vegetables or I'm locking you in your closet for a week with the light off, they would eat their vegetables. So why don't I do that? So why wouldn't I do that? Because that's a fucking sick thing to do. That's why I wouldn't do that. But the point is, if you threaten people with draconian punishment, you can control them. Yes, that is how dictators operate. Yes.
That's, I don't know, in a certain way, it's equally as important. Some people would say it's more important. Because the people in this country don't want to see our American flag burned and spit on. And
it's happening everywhere.
In many cases, paid agitators.
It's an epidemic.
They're paid by the radical left to do it. You talk to these people, they don't even know, half of them don't even know what they're doing. They say, I don't know, they gave me money to do this. I see the same thing.
Oh, yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. There's videos everywhere, but I don't know. I was just dumpster diving. Guy offered me $10 to burn a flag.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
It's a narrow vote. You know, the African People's Socialist Party, who we just documented, they voted to do a farmers market, but it was close. It was close. The flag burners almost had it. They were almost going to pay people to burn flags, but not quite.
Instead,
not quite. That's a joke. That's satire. I don't want to get them any more trouble than they're already in. That was humor. That was humor.
Yeah.
None of that is actually what happened.
Destroy a nation. That's not working, because I think our nation now is the most respected nation anywhere in the world by far. You saw that with the European leaders on Friday. You saw that with NATO, where they agreed to go from 2% no pay to 5% fully paid up, trillions of dollars paid, where they respect your president to a level that they jokingly call me the president of Europe. They call me the president of Europe, which is an honor. I like Europe, and I like those people. They're good people. They're great leaders. And we've never had a case where 7 plus really 28, essentially 38 countries were represented here the other day. 38 European countries.
All right, sign it already. Come on.
Other countries were represented, and it was a great meeting. But your country is respected again. I say it all the time. 1 year ago, our country was dead. Everybody said it. We had a dead country. We were not going to survive. Now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. So it's an honor to be involved. And this group has a lot to do with it. Right?
No, he signs it. Has not read it. He says, I hope that language is in there. Hasn't read this. Signs it.
Does anybody behind me have any?
He talks about what he wants in it. He says, I hope that's in it. And then he signs it. That's it. All right. So Trump signs order to criminally charge those who burn U.S. flag in protest. Donald Trump signed an executive order on Monday instructing federal prosecutors to pursue criminal charges against individuals who burn flags during protests. The order tells the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi to look at cases where people burn flags and see if they can be charged with other crimes. So even The Guardian whiffed on that headline. It does not criminalize the act. It just... What it does is it designates the act of flag burning as, worthy of further investigation.
Yes, right.
So, like, if someone burns a flag, you can look into them, right? And see if they can be charged with other crimes like disturbing the peace or breaking environmental laws. Yeah, that would be ironic. It's an attempt by Trump to go around.
They release greenhouse gases.
Greenhouse gases. Yeah. It's an attempt by Trump to go around a Supreme Court decision from 1989. When the court ruled 5-4 in Texas versus Johnson that destroying the flag is protected political expression under the First Amendment. That court ruling threw out flag burning laws in 48 states and made it clear that people have the right to burn flags as a way to express their political views. Trump also claimed you burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail as he signed the executive order. But the order itself doesn't include details about a potential jail sentence. Trump has long advocated for criminalizing flag burning. In 2016, he posted on social media, nobody should be allowed to burn the American flag. If they do, there must be consequences, perhaps loss of citizenship or year in jail. And yes, there is the tweet with the receipt. That was after he won the first time. That was in November of 2016. He fired off that banger there. So this got widespread opposition. Predictably, Thomas Massie is against it. Flag burning, whether it's the American or the Israeli flag, is covered by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. That's right. They just cracked down a week ago about burning the Israeli flag. Neither Congress nor the president nor a judge can make it illegal. You know, I watched Jimmy's segment on this, and he made a good point that perhaps this whole thing was a last-ditch effort to save face, because if they made it illegal to burn the Israeli flag, maybe they felt they kind of had to do something.
Actually,
to crack down on American flag burning.
Yeah, I think that is what it is.
That could be what it is.
Because look at the timing.
Look at the timing.
And that was the point all of these people made. It's legal to burn an American flag, but not an Israeli one.
Not an Israeli flag. So now they had to. Oh yeah, and you better not burn ours either. So Fire, good free speech organization. President Trump may believe he has the power to revise the First Amendment with the stroke of a pen, but he doesn't. Flag burning as a form of political protest is protected by the First Amendment. That's nothing new. While people can be prosecuted for burning anything in a place they aren't allowed to set fires, the government can't prosecute protected expressive activity, even if many Americans, including the president, find it uniquely offensive and provocative. You don't have to like flag burning. You can condemn it, debate it, or hoist your own flag even higher. The beauty of free speech is that you get to express your opinions even if others don't like what you have to say. Yes, pretty simple stuff. The Libertarian Party posts burning the American flag is an expression of free speech, which has repeatedly been defended by the U.S. Supreme Court. Patriotism doesn't mean blind allegiance to symbols. If you ban burning the flag, you wholly discredit what it represents. And the Mises Caucus.
You know who I bet agrees with that? Chase Oliver.
Yeah, Chase Oliver. He does. Yeah, but they didn't. Too bad. It's too bad he didn't run on their ticket. It's too bad he was not their candidate last cycle, because they may have backed him. But the Mises Caucus, which was the pro-Trump faction of the Libertarian Party, also is against this. Burning a flag is a form of political expression protected by the First Amendment. Unless the flag is stolen, government criminalizing its destruction is censorship. That's right. 5 times August. So now you're getting into the more Trump-aligned handles coming out in opposition to this. 5 times August, they're the COVID dissident band. They played Rescue the Republic. They're going out on a limb here. It's weird. They're making this statement just before they release their big concept album about how vitamin C is actually bad for you. You would think they'd want to. You'd think they might want to stay out of the limelight until that drops. You don't want to alienate the base right before you drop that album. But they're showing courage. Good for them.
Rescue the Republic, they did mostly Taylor Swift covers, which
it's very weird.
Nobody saw that coming, but they were surprisingly effective with that.
Yeah, exactly. Burning the flag is stupid, but it's still freedom of speech, even if I disagree with it. But just so I understand where we are at, burning the flag will get you a minimum year in jail, while being connected to Epstein's network of pedos and human traffickers is boring and not worth looking into. Got it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. James King tweets out, I haven't seen a single Trump supporter supporting this executive order. Yeah, a lot of MAGA-aligned accounts were either silent or voiced their opposition, but not Michael Knowles. Not Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire. I love this EO. It's one of my favorite EOs he's ever issued. Jack Posobiec says, imagine simping for a flag burner. That's right. They're on message. Matt Walsh has an interesting point here, and this kind of segues into an adjacent topic here, but I think it belongs in the same piece. So Matt Walsh says, yes, make it a crime to burn the American flag. Desecration of the gay pride flag is already prosecuted as a hate crime in this country. No more double standards. If the sacred symbol of the LGBT cult is protected, American flag should be too. Simple as that. So yeah, a lot of MAGA, sort of latched onto this. If burning a gay pride flag is a hate crime, so is burning an American flag. You can't have it both ways. Okay, so right here, what this kind of reveals is that they view Americans as a particular group, just as like LGBT people or black people. And this is where that white nativist kind of vision sets in, right? Because they the reason burning the American flag is political expression, that is not considered hateful in that way, is because it is not an attack on one specific group. It's a political entity representing many different groups, like America, right?
Yeah.
like a melting pot kind of thing, right? So, hey, Matt Taibbi really took a chance here. This is fucking stupid. Good for you, Matt. And you know who responded to that? You know what? I'll allow it. It's no longer stupid, because if you can go to prison, this is a response to Taibbi, for years for doing a burnout on an LGBTQ flag, or prison for being against Israel, screw it. So this is where a lot of this comes from. So Christopher Rufo, one of the big sort of, right-wing culture warriors here, says, I'm sorry, but as long as this is the status quo, I'm not going to work myself into a state of hysteria about Trump's executive order on burning the American flag. That's a tell, by the way. Whenever somebody says, I'm not going to get worked up about it, or I'm not going to cry any tears about it, what they're saying is they know they're in the wrong, but they don't care. That's what that is code for. Oh, I'm not going to get upset about it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying I'm not going to get upset about it. Right. So these are the two examples that he cites here. Okay, 15 years in Iowa jail for burning pride flag. And then the Daily Mail, 3 Washington teens are facing 10 years in jail after making skid marks on LGBT Rainbow Road mural while riding e-scooters. So we just take a closer zoom in so you get those headlines. So these are the pieces that he cites as evidence for the fact that you're not allowed to burn an LGBT flag. So Zed Jelani points out here, Chris Rufo is misrepresenting things. Oh, you don't say. Nobody in the U.S. has ever gone to jail for burning their own pride flag. Now, if you commit theft, arson, or terroristic threats, and it happens to be aimed at a building with a pride flag, it may not end well. So here is the very article that Rufo linked to. Okay, a U.S. judge has handed down a sentence of at least 15 years to a man who stole an LGBT pride flag from a church and burned it outside a strip club. Adolfo Martinez, 30, admitted to the media that he took the flag from Ames United Church of Christ due to his animosity towards homosexuals. He was found guilty last month of hate crime harassment, reckless use of fire, and being a habitual offender. The incident occurred around midnight on June 11th in downtown Ames, Iowa. Police say the crime spree began at Dangerous Curves, a strip club, when the police were called because a man was making threats. By the time they arrived, he had already been kicked out by staff. After leaving the club, Martinez then traveled to the church and ripped down its flag. He then returned to the strip club where he used lighter fluid to burn the flag in the street. He also threatened to burn down the bar. Okay, so the way Christopher Rufo categorizes this is a man was sentenced to prison for burning a pride flag. What he leaves out is the fact that he got kicked out of this club, then ran over to a church, stole their flag, took the flag back to the club, burned the flag in front of the club, and threatened to burn down the club. You see, so there were a few different underlying crimes there. He was not just thrown in jail for burning the flag. That's, of course, a pretty egregious misrepresentation of that. Now, you know me. I think sentencing is out of control in this country. Does that guy deserve 15 years in prison for that? No, I think that's overcharging.
No.
But you can't say he was simply charged for burning a flag. That's not what happened. He was threatened to burn the bar down after being kicked out of it and lit a stolen flag on fire. Okay. So Reason Magazine got hold of the other example that he cited, which is putting skid marks on the cross walk there that was painted in LGBT colors. And they pointed out, rightfully, it's illiberal to charge teens with felonies for vandalizing a pride crosswalk, which I agree with. It is. And you know who else ended up in agreement with that? The courts. So charges dismissed against teenager for damaging pride crosswalk. Okay, so that charge ended up being thrown out because it was kind of a ridiculous charge. So the two examples that Rufo cites as why he's not too worked. Hey, look, I'm just not too worked up about this, flag burning EO, because look, they'll lock you up for vandalizing, a crosswalk, or they'll lock you up for burning a pride flag. Neither are true. Just complete bullshit. Absolute complete crap. And you look, I mean, as of yesterday, 269,000 views. This is why we tell you the speed at which total bullshit can spread on X is breathtaking. It's breathtaking. And you have a huge, not a majority, but you have a sizable subsection of this debate now being sort of hijacked by, well, if you could burn a pride flag, you can't burn a pride flag, then you shouldn't be able to burn America. You don't go to jail for burning pride. That's not true. Yeah. The most prominent culture warrior cited 2 articles. One of them, the case was dropped. The other, the guy stole a flag, burned it in front of a bar, and threatened to burn the bar down. Okay, so neither example is at all analogous to what Trump wants to do, which is 1 year in jail for burning a flag, which thankfully is not even what the executive order even says.
Well, that is a perfect example of the grift that these people are running. Their job is to run cover for Trump. And in any case where something Trump does creates cognitive dissonance for what remains of his voters, they have to give them a distraction or a way to reconcile the contradiction. Oh, you're for free speech, but the gays, right?
Right.
That's it. That's what they do. That's literally how they make a living.
Right.
How can you deflect negative criticism away from Donald Trump and ease the cognitive dissonance of people who really have nothing in their lives other than to follow the kind of rage bait garbage that I shovel out to them? How do I make it okay for them? How do I make these obvious contradictions okay for them? The gays.
Right. Exactly. All right, so I want to delve into one other aspect of this flag burning story here, because Glenn Greenwald posted this video, which he found, which was a good find. Here's former Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, probably the single most popular justice among the American right in the last 5 decades, explaining why burning the American flag is vital free speech under the First Amendment and why banning it is clearly unconstitutional. I'm glad that Glenn found this video, and I'm glad he made the point that Scalia is considered like the arch conservative of arch conservatives.
Right.
I mean, he was considered the furthest right on the bench when he was on the bench. So we're going to take a look at this.
I would not allow people to go about burning the American. If I were king, I would not allow people to go about burning the American flag. However, we have a First Amendment which says that the right of free speech shall not be abridged, and it is addressed in particular to speech critical of the government. I mean, that was the main kind of speech that tyrants would seek to suppress. Burning the flag is a form of expression. Speech doesn't just mean written words or oral words. It could be semaphore. Burning a flag is a symbol that expresses an idea. I hate the government is unjust, whatever.
If you're not sure, then in the end, and no one knows the Constitution better than you do, doesn't it come down to your personal interpretation of the Constitution? If it isn't clear-cut, which it clearly isn't, you in the end have to make an opinion, don't you?
Well, don't forget, this person has to be convicted by a jury of 12 people who unanimously have to find that he was inciting to riot. So, it's not all up to me. It would be up to me to say that there was not enough evidence for the jury to find that, perhaps. But ultimately, the right of jury trial is the protection.
Okay, so he articulates it right there. He sounds like we sound, and like I said, that is arch conservative Antonin Scalia saying, of course, burning the flag is protected as expression under the First Amendment. Where there is evidence of underlying crime, in other words, burning it in order to incite a riot, you can prosecute there if there's probable cause, which is essentially what this executive order says. So that made the rounds. And so J.D. Vance found it important to respond. Few things, he says. Antonin Scalia was a great Supreme Court justice and a genuinely kind and decent person. 2, the president's executive order is consistent with Texas v. Johnson. And 3, Texas v. Johnson was wrong and William Rehnquist was right. Rehnquist was one of the dissenters, although he did not pen the dissenting opinion. So there's J.D. Vance having it all ways possible, right? Scalia was a great guy. The ruling in that case was wrong, but Trump's executive order abides by that ruling. So Trump trashed the ruling right before he signed it. We saw it on video. He actually mentions the fact that, well, you had a liberal court that's a 5-4. It was 5-4, which meant Scalia actually sided with the liberals. That's why the ruling went that way. The conservatives had what they needed to pass it if he did not pull a John McCain there. But the once again, just kind of having it always there. Zed Jelani says, JD, this is a good question. Why did you spend months bashing Europe over its free speech policies only for your administration to become the most anti-free speech administration in America since Richard Nixon? Yeah, that is a good question. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Right. You have J.D. Vance backing this play after that great lecture that he gave the Europeans.
Well, I seem to remember Keaton at the time that he gave that whole owning the EU speech.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of commentators in our space were busting a nut over that speech. And we pointed out, well, he's saying more by what he's not talking about than what he's talking about. And of course, what he was not talking about in any way were all the journalists being persecuted in Europe, in some cases arrested and tried for reporting on Israel and Palestine. All he really wanted to talk about were right-wing culture war issues like praying by an abortion clinic, which I agree with that, what he said about it as far as it goes. But to be giving this fiery speech, how you're going to put the Europeans on the back foot about their violations against free speech and just commit this glaring omission of the greatest example of Europe's assault on speech at that moment. I don't understand how you watch that and you come out the other side and go, you see, he told them. He told them. What did he tell them? What did he tell them? That there's an enormous Israel carve out on free speech. That's okay. You can suppress that.
Right.
You can suppress that. Just don't suppress the born agains.
Exactly. So Matt Van Swol replies, this guy, I mean, the pick me of all pick me motherfuckers, Matt Van Swol. It's kind of surprised me the sheer volume of people who did not read the actual executive order. If you didn't, please do, or just read the highlighted part below. Okay, you know who didn't read it, Matt? Donald Trump didn't read. We know he didn't read it because he said to the camera, he says, I hope that's in there. I hope that language is in there, inciting the riot. So he clearly did not read it. He didn't understand the first thing about it because he thought it meant we're going to jail you for burning a flag, period. So he highlights and prosecute those who incite violence or otherwise violate our laws while desecrating this symbol of our country. So Matt Van Swol is saying, hey, look, I wish people would read this before they criticize it. It doesn't even ban flag burning. Well, tell that to your dear leader because he clearly didn't read it either.
Mm-hmm.
So here's just some background facts and case summary. Texas versus Johnson, just to give you some background as to what Scalia was talking about. Gregory Lee Johnson burned an American flag outside the convention center where the 1984 Republican National Convention was being held in Dallas, Texas. Well, don't forget, they didn't have Grindr back then, so you had to send some kind of signal at the RNC that you were game. Maybe that's what he was doing.
Well, well, back then that was slang for I'm flaming.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I'm surprised his lawyer missed that. His lawyer should have argued that. He's just trying to make a friend. That's all.
Well, this is why very often members of that community will say how important it is to be represented by people who are part of that community.
Right.
Because otherwise, how do you know the language? How do you know the vocabulary?
Exactly. It may not even have gone to the Supreme Court if they had made that argument earlier.
Yep.
Right. Johnson burned the flag to protest the policies of President Ronald Reagan. He was arrested and charged with violating a Texas statute that prevented the desecration of a venerated object, including the American flag, if such action were likely to incite anger in others. So not incite violence, incite anger. Well, that's clearly unconstitutional. You're allowed to incite anger in someone.
Sure.
You're just not allowed to incite violence, right? That's the difference between words and actions. The whole reason you have a First Amendment is because there's a difference between words and actions.
Yep.
Right. So the issue, whether flag burning constitutes symbolic speech protected by the First Amendment, ruling, yes. And it was a 5-4 win. The dissent was written by Stevens, not Rehnquist, although Vance name-dropped Rehnquist in his tweet. Writing for the dissent, Justice Stevens argued that the flag's unique status as a symbol of national unity outweighed symbolic speech concerns, and thus the government could lawfully prohibit flag burning. So that is, of course, an absurd.
Yeah, it's not based in anything.
It's not based
in anything.
It's based on emotion. Yeah.
Well, that's why you got Scalia, because his whole legal theory was strict adherence to the Constitution.
Yes. Yes, that's why a lot of people. I mean, I've met people who are I won't even say like left, but most like serious scholars had a respect for Scalia, even if they didn't agree with him, even because he was a very right wing. But they had a respect for him because of that, because of what you just said. Like he was actually principled in his view that his job was to enforce the Constitution, and there were certain places he wouldn't go. He's not Clarence Thomas who would
He
do
was
anything.
not. I was just thinking.
He's
He was
like
not
he
a
was a
clown
serious
show like Clarence
right.
Thomas.
He's a serious guy. Not only was he, a serious guy, but that video that we showed at the beginning of this clip really shows you sort of how far we have slid in an anti-democratic orientation, right? Because there had for so long been a somewhat of a gentleman's agreement that there are certain places we will not go, because once you set precedent in such a way as this would, if it said what Trump says it said, which it does not, if you set precedent that is such an egregious violation of the Constitution and the courts sign off on it, well, at that point, there's no one left to guard the hen house at that point. It's just open season. And we have come a long way since then. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And, I blame first and foremost the people who were tasked with actually fulfilling the promises of revolutionary moments like the civil rights movement, like the anti-war movement, people who were really tasked with taking the ball much further down the field and who instead deferred to capital and let this country become the sort of hollowed out hellhole that it is. That is what drove people into such despair that they no longer have any respect for that gentleman's agreement, right? So we could talk about how we got here, but that agreement, that social contract, if you will, it's a rough use of the term, is really up for grabs at the moment, to put it very mildly. You could say it's fallen into the hands of people who simply don't give a shit, like Donald Trump, who couldn't even be bothered to read what this said. He's just so chomping at the bit to throw people in jail for violating the honor of the United States by burning a flag.
Well, I think a lot of people who accept this or are, thrilled to see them going about this, systematically people have become very ignorant about what the core premise of the country is. And I think that's quite intentional. They stopped teaching civics for a reason, because they got this massive uprising in the 60s and 70s of a generation that had been raised to understand what was constitutional and what wasn't. Most people don't know that today. You were taught that in school at one time. Why'd they get rid of that? Why would you, in a country premised on the idea that people can only govern themselves if they're educated in the system of government, why would you get rid of that class? That was mandatory at one time. Why would you stop making that mandatory?
Right.
Because you don't want informed citizens. You don't want people who understand how it's supposed to work. I always say America was conceived really as a libertarian country, and I think that's true. I mean, there are other elements there. There are elements of oligarchy right from the beginning, sure, but there was a deep suspicion at the core of the American project from the beginning of state power and the way that state power could be used to crush the rights of the individual.
Right.
What the Trump administration is doing is, where legal precedent is in their way, they're just using the machinery of the state to crush the individual. So, well, we can't charge them with flag burning. Well, we could make their life a nightmare. Right. How do you as an individual fight that? Look at the resources of the government. That's exactly why these protections are in place, and a big part of the Trump administration's agenda, from this flag burning thing to Abrego Garcia, is if we can't get you according to the letter of the law, we're going to do everything we can to violate its spirit being the government should not be weaponized against the individual in that way. That's really what they're throwing out.
Exactly. All right, folks. We will move right on along here while we are paused between segments. I'll give you a word from one of our dissident sponsors, John Koa. He has a new single out from his new album A to Z. It's called Just a Little Off the Rails. He's been advertising with us for a while now, and this is the latest from his upcoming album. So the core of these songs were rhythm tracks from a collection of live acoustic performances between 2017 and 2020. John was going to release just the solo acoustic tracks, but he didn't feel like releasing music while witnessing the same state of affairs we discussed right here on the show. So he decided to wait and continue recording, and now he's in the process of releasing these songs. Just a Little Off the Rails is the first single. It's a great tune. It's an autobiographical song featuring acoustic guitar, bass, vocals, and slide. So head over to John Koa's Spotify and give it a listen. You can find his Spotify by searching his name, obviously, JOHNKOAH, on the Spotify app, or you can find a link to all of his socials, including that Spotify page, at this link that we made up, newdissidents.com/Koa. Okay, we got some YouTube super chats here. Oops. Okay, Marvin Vargas, thanks for the $2. Fucked foreign policy, war sanctions makes refugees. Thank you very much. Mr. Mad Brown Cow says the Epstein species has infiltrated the U.S. Thank you, Mr. Mad Brown Cow. Marvin Vargas, what about pedo-Israeli cyber boss Alexandrovich? Yeah, that's right. That's right. Mr. Mad Brown Cow says the star mongrels of Europe are the real Amalek. Thank you. Oops, what happened here? I'm gonna have to reload that. Okay, I'll go to some Rumble rants now. Oops, sorry, we could put that off. I hear we can't burn Israel flag as well. America, yeah, that's right. Well, that's what we're saying in the segment. We think that's probably why they did this, right? Another opportunity for feds to start burning flags to crack down on citizens. Ultimate false flag. There you go. Eric Husso says, I still have my American flag papers. Does that make smoking weed illegal? Again, yeah, exactly. Yeah. What if you want to smoke weed with some American flag rolling papers? What do they do there? You should ask that question. You should get invited to the White House press room. You should ask Carolyn Levitt that question. Hey, I got these American flag rolling papers. I want to, roll a blunt to America. Can I do that still? Yeah.
Spend a couple of years pretending to be a fanatical pro-Trump account, and you'll get invited.
Yeah, exactly. Verdict on American. Yeah. Verdict on American flag condoms. Is it still free speech? Yeah, that would be. Yes, that's something. Yes. The whole line. Gotta interrogate all of that. Mr. Mad Brown Cow says our lifetimes have been responsible for all PTSD. Thank you. Ryan Spence, Tracy is dying on this Epstein hill. So crazy. He ain't dying on it. He's living on it, man. He's
dining out on it.
Yeah, he's dining out. He's working it. He's working it. He's making sure he catches all the like the Dave Smith article he put out and the Whitney Webb. Oh yeah, he's working it, as they say.
That is very, very confusing for the legions of Daryl. They don't know what to do with that. They're running to Michael Tracy, who generally would not be the kind of person they'd be running to as a reliable source because they feel like what he's saying backs Daryl, but at the same time, most of those people like Whitney Webb. It's very confusing for them.
Right. That's true. All right, let's move right on along. All right, so we got a couple of related stories now on some certain individuals, some certain unsavory characters.
Okay, so you might remember a couple months back, Josh Hawley introduced an act, the Pelosi Act, to stop insider trading in Congress. Now, so many people in Congress on the Republican side, certainly not on the Democrat side, have called out Nancy Pelosi stock trading. You would think they all would have been for it, but Rick Scott, former governor of Florida, currently senator from Florida, he didn't like the idea. You know how much he didn't like the idea? Cuck Turd here pointed out, it's not Cat Turd. It's not Cat Turd.
Parody account.
It's a parody account making fun of. Far be it from Cat Turd to call out Rick Scott,
no,
Donald Trump's BFF over there. So Cuckturd called him out. He's worth $500 million, and he got very, very offended at the idea of stopping Congress people from trading. He claims that's not what bothers him, but it seems that's really what bothers him, because what do you have against people making money? Here we go.
I own operating businesses, but somehow it's suspect because I made money. I don't know how many people in the audience, how many of you don't want to make money? Anybody want to be poor? I don't.
Who here wants to be poor?
Okay. Now bookmark that in your brain. He made money in businesses. There's nothing wrong with that. People just go after him unfairly because he made money. Keep in mind that he said that.
Right? So this idea that we're going to attack people because they make money is wrong. Is absolutely wrong. We should cherish all of our different backgrounds. Every one of us has a different background. I've got a business background. But what I was just accused of is making money, and somehow I can't be fair and do things the right way. So I think it's disgusting what is going on here. So, but, I agree with, I completely agree with you. We've got to stop people from trading stocks. But this is way different. This is an attack against the president, attack against the vice president. That's what this is. So I think it's wrong.
Okay, so as he often does when he's being particularly douchey, he slaps the Velcro on his side. He puts the other part on Trump, and he slaps himself right there next to Trump. Yeah, they actually made a carve out knowing that they're dealing with Il Trumpo, arguably the most corrupt president in the history of the nation, that there's no way he's going to sign legislation that would stop him from trading. So they actually, what he says at the end is not true. They intentionally made a carve out in the hope that Trump would sign it, that, oh, no, you can do your dodgy crypto cell phone business, whatever the fuck you and your half-bright kids are doing to make money off the presidency. You can still do that, but hey, could you sign this, please? So that's not even true, but he claims that's why, in order to get the chuds to not think he's a creepy asshole. So this was just this week he puts this out, because this was not a good look for him. He got lambasted a lot for it. So deflecting to Pelosi. This is from his website, August 20th. Senator Rick Scott calls for GAO review of Nancy Pelosi's trading history. Today, Senator Rick Scott sent a letter to the Government Accountability Office requesting a full audit and review of the stock trading history of former Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her immediate family throughout her time in Congress. This review is crucial to fully understanding any potential avenues for corrupt members to use insider information for personal gain and ensure the public's trust that members are working in Americans' best interests. Well, that all sounds good. He goes on for what he's requesting them to examine. The few bullet points here. The timing and nature of any stock trades or investments made by Representative Pelosi or her immediate family that may have intersected with pending legislation or congressional activity under her purview. Whether any existing ethics, disclosure, or conflict of interest requirements were violated. Recommendations for additional oversight or legislative reforms to prevent potential financial conflicts among members of Congress in the future. And he goes on, while I work on legislation to ban members from trading stocks, I have led several bills to stop members from benefiting off their service in other ways, including the No Corruption Act and a ban on members lobbying after their service. We must continue working to identify and address any wrongdoing by members to ensure public officials are held to the highest ethical standards and that the American people can trust their elected representatives. And he steals this one from the boss. Thank you for your attention to this important matter. Please do not hesitate to reach out to my office for any additional information, and I look forward to your response in bringing transparency to former Speaker Pelosi's trading history to help us identify and root out corruption in our federal government. Okay. All right. So that's really interesting that he dropped that on August 20th, because just a few days later, he very quietly updated his reporting on his own trades from unusual whales. Holy, look at this. Senator Rick Scott just disclosed trades more than a year late. They were worth $26 million. You did not read that wrong. He traded millions on companies he legislated. Unusual. Yeah, you could say that. So I'm sure that was just a coincidence that he made a big show of his anti-corruption efforts and wrote a whole letter trying to focus attention on his opposition to Nancy Pelosi's trades right before he knew he was going to be updating his own filings. This is from Amuse. Rick Scott disclosed roughly $26 million in stock trades more than a year past the legal deadline, with the filings covering 2024 transactions surfacing in mid-August 2025. For violating the Stock Act, he faces a hefty $200 fine.
Wow.
Unless he convinces the Senate to waive it. And he now insists he's learned his lesson. Senator Scott is the richest senator. Wow. I wonder why these guys would just ignore the rules with those hefty fines.
Right.
They have to pay if they get caught. What terrible. It's almost like Congress can't police itself, and they shouldn't be writing the laws that govern their own activities. Kind of like the IDF.
Right.
This is vote in or out. Scott and his family invested more than $26 million in firms that had direct business before the Senate committees he served on. That means the same man voting on laws that shaped healthcare, energy, and defense was also personally profiting from those industries. Critics call it a clear conflict of interest, while watchdog groups warn that this is exactly how political power gets twisted into personal wealth. Scott, worth hundreds of millions already, insists the trades were handled through a trust. All right, so people who are native to Florida might be more familiar with Rick Scott's personal history than the rest of us are. But it's worth taking a deep dive into who Rick Scott is. So little detour here. You might remember President Trump being asked what he wanted to cut from Medicare and Medicaid. This is what he said.
The only thing we're cutting is waste, fraud, and abuse. With Medicaid, waste, fraud, and abuse. There's tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse. There's incompetent things putting. We have illegal aliens that are multiple killers with multiple murder records getting Medicaid. I don't think anybody minds if we cut that. The Democrats, on the other hand, are going to destroy it because they're going to leave these people on. We're cutting three things: waste, fraud, and abuse. We're not changing Medicaid, and we're not changing Medicare, and we're not changing Social Security. And if I wanted to do those things, I would have done it during my 4 years that we were.
Okay, so you might remember he went on to push his big beautiful bill, which cut $900 billion from those programs through Congress and signed it. But that's not really the main point. He says that he's really concerned about waste, fraud, and abuse, and yet he has endorsed Rick Scott for Senate over and over again. Rick Scott, while DeSantis was still running in the primary, got out early and endorsed Trump. But, if he wants to crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse, he might want to look at his buddy Rick Scott. Rick Scott had to resign as executive of a company that committed the largest case of Medicare fraud in U.S. history. The company was fined $1.7 billion for it, but Scott still left with $300 million in stock, $5.1 million severance, and a $950,000 consulting contract for 5 years.
It is one of the biggest criminal investigations of an American corporation ever.
We're executing a search warrant.
In the past few months, hundreds of federal agents have raided at least 70 of Columbia's hospitals and offices in 7 states.
Rick Scott promised explosive growth to shareholders, but to insiders, Rick Scott could be ruthless.
They seem to care more about profits than medicine.
Good old-fashioned fraud, lying for money.
Over the last decade, Columbia has made its stockholders and executives rich.
The company cheated the Medicare program, and they knew what they were doing.
Regularly filing false Medicare reports and overcharging the government.
Charging the government for everything from Kentucky Derby tickets to country club memberships.
False claims submitted to the government year after year over the course of hundreds of hospitals. Their promotions depended on it. Their bonuses depended on it.
For-profit hospital chain HCA, formerly called Columbia HCA, will plead guilty to criminal conduct.
$745 million to settle charges of fraud in Medicare billing.
Rick Scott and 5 other top corporate executives have resigned, and federal investigators told ABC News today that Scott is now considered a prime target of the investigation. Scott could...
Okay, all right, so a little vintage footage from the time before he parlayed his ill-gotten gains into a political career. Now, this is part of what drives me crazy about people like Benny in the Closet and Alex Jones and Nick Sorter. They treat Rick Scott like he's in the club, right? They run cover for Rick Scott. And at the same time, these are the people who will be screaming about all the fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicaid and Medicare, but they'll embrace this reptile. Now, as you will see, you know, the term psychopath is used quite a lot in regards to politicians, usually accurately so, but probably usually as a clinical diagnosis, it's an exaggeration. Not in this case. This guy is a stone cold psychopath. So we're going to take a look a little more deeply at how he made this money and what kinds of practices his hospital chain kind of pioneered in their effort to make profit. So this is George Rockall Schmidt. He did a very good job with this. If you want to watch the whole thing, The Shameful Case of Rick Scott and Healthcare Fraud, excellent video. Give the guy a follow. So let's take a look at just a little bit of this to give you an idea how this guy made his money.
Just according to staff, Columbia HCA cut costs by deliberately understaffing nursing shifts, replacing registered nurses with staff trained in-house, without the same level of professional qualifications that were generally the standard, and by introducing inferior supplies. Some patients who were unprofitable to treat were sometimes dumped, that is, discharged or moved elsewhere, even if they were not in a stable condition, and even if it was dangerous or medically unethical to do so. As it grew, Columbia HCA especially relied on referrals from local doctors. It tried to secure these with kickbacks, not unlike the way the Sacklers tried to woo doctors in their quest to get America addicted to OxyContin. Expensive dinners, lavish trips or functions, loans with no expectation of repayment, office rents paid for, all created an ecosystem of corruption where many doctors served their patients second and themselves and Columbia first. Analysis by the University of Auburn estimates that Columbia paid just under $7 million in kickbacks just in El Paso, and from that generated more than $100 million in Medicare business. These kickbacks were acts of serious corruption that were ongoing since at least 1994. If you can't trust your doctor to send you to the right hospital or pursue the correct medical treatment because there's no money to be made. Who can you trust? But how Columbia HCA billed Medicaid and Medicare, that is, the United States government, was pure fraud. Thanks to more than 30 healthcare professionals with the spine to become whistleblowers, the FBI sank its teeth into Columbia HCA in March of 1997, starting at El Paso and expanding their investigation to the rest of the company in July, the same month that Scott resigned under pressure from the board. Their investigation uncovered fraud on a massive scale. The company had been overcharging Medicare, Medicaid, and TRICARE patients, that is, military and ex-military patients, almost all the way back to Columbia's inception in 1989. They overbilled government programs for lab tests, conducted lab tests when they weren't needed, they misreported diagnoses to the government to inflate reimbursement costs, they lied about their property taxes and tax liabilities, they charged the government for community education that was just in fact their own marketing. Yes, the taxpayer footed the bill for a chain of private, for-profit hospitals making $19 billion a year at its height for advertisements. And that's not all. When Columbia HCA bought out other hospitals, it fraudulently claimed administration and management fees as medical expenses. They further bumped up profits by providing home visits for patients that did not need them, or sometimes not providing home visits but claiming that they did. The FBI called the fraud systematic and said that it was perpetrated by corporate officers, including CEO Rick Scott, the company's president, and the company's corpo in charge of internal auditing. They even had a secret fund of up to $1 billion to pay back Medicaid, Medicare, or insurance companies that asked questions.
Okay. So I want you to remember this every time you hear somebody like Elon or somebody like Trump or really any of these people talking about federal workers who are ripping off the system, immigrants who are ripping off the system. Remember how they treat Rick Scott. When you watch these hosts like Benny in the Closet, who's had Rick Scott on many times, or when you watch Fox, or when you watch Newsmax, or when you watch any of these networks talking about waste, fraud, and abuse, who will then go and give Rick Scott a foot rub when they have him on, treat him with all respect like he's their buddy, you remember these people hate you and they want you to die. They hate you and they want you to die. They are trying to manipulate you into signing your own death warrant by propping up sick, deranged psychopaths like Rick Scott. We have more, but do you want to add anything, Keaton?
Nope, go ahead.
Okay, so how does Donald Trump, who cares so much about the waste, fraud, and abuse, what does he say? Thank you to Senators Marco Rubio and Rick Scott of Florida for the great endorsements. Nice when both highly respected Republican Florida senators endorse Trump over the missing from Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSanctimonious. They know something that others don't. Wow, man, if he meant any of what he said, he'd say, keep your endorsement, right? Like, this isn't like an obscure thing. This is the biggest case of Medicare fraud in the history of the country. So why would you embrace him? Because he doesn't care about any of that. He just cares about who benefits. Key bono. This is why I say psychopath. It's not just this hospital. That, by the way, Rick Scott was the co-founder of that. His partner had contacts with wealthy blue blood families. That was how he got the financing to build this hospital corporation. He was the founder. He's not like a CEO got hired with this already in progress. He made that company what you just heard. But he wasn't done. Like, he's really made a life out of profiting from people's illness and the denial of health care. He seems to get off on it. Heart doctors outraged. Florida dumps hospital standards after big gifts to GOP. This is 2016 when he's the governor. The state of Florida is putting thousands of children with heart defects at risk. A group of cardiac doctors say because of a change in policy that came after Tenet Healthcare contributed $200,000 to Florida Republicans. In a widely publicized investigation in June, CNN revealed that a program at a Tenet hospital in Florida had failed to live up to state quality standards for children's heart surgery. Less than 2 months later, the state decided to get rid of those standards. The decision came right after the giant for-profit hospital chain made contributions to Republican Governor Rick Scott and its party that dwarfed those the company made to candidates or parties in other states. Now, if you are somebody who's very angry about Andrew Cuomo getting money from the hospital lobby in New York and then shoving grandma into these nursing homes to die, well, you should be angry about this too, right? Like if you hate that kind of corruption, how much worse does it get than getting rid of standards for kids with heart conditions? Because they gave you $200,000. How much more of a scumbag can you be? Understand, this is not Democrats, it's not Republicans. They all hate you. If you are the average person, if you're the working person, if you're the middle class person, it's not Republicans, it's not Democrats, it's all of them. They hate you. They hate you and they want you dead. This is Rick Scott being confronted about the fact that he got rid of the Obamacare Medicaid expansion in the state of Florida, so poor people could not afford to get health care. And he went into a Starbucks. One of the workers told him what she thought about that.
It doesn't work. In fact, you cut Medicaid, so I couldn't get Obamacare. You're an asshole. You don't care about working people. I'm not talking to you. You don't care about working people. You should be ashamed to show your face around here.
$1 million jobs.
$1 million jobs? Great. Who here has a great job?
You should.
Or is looking forward to finishing school? You really feel like you have a job coming up? You stripped women of access to public health care. Shame on you, Rick Scott. We depend on those services. Rich people like you don't know what to do. When poor people like us need health services, you cut them. Shame on you, Rick Scott. You're an embarrassment to our state.
Sweet. That's what you call Florida woman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Florida woman. Gave it to him. But he wasn't done. He wasn't done. He is on a one-man mission to kill sick people. This has been his life's work. So here he is in the run-up to the big, beautiful bill doing an interview.
What they were doing was...
Whoops. Hang on. Did I not load that
Yeah, I
one
think
in?
you got to load that one in.
Whoops. Okay. Give me a minute. Vamp for a minute.
All right. Here, I'll read a super chat. What do we got here? Tim Canterbury, thanks for the 20 euro. Israeli leadership cite example of Native Americans and Japanese to make the case they can get away with Gaza genocide. Yeah, they say, look, Japan, after getting nuked, is now a vassal state, and the Native Americans joined the army. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I've heard them say that.
All right.
Good.
I got it.
Thank you for
Yep.
that.
Sticking point.
Okay, so he was being interviewed about Medicaid and Medicare cuts, which, of course, he's very hot on that idea.
Is this about paying able-bodied 30-year-old men without dependents welfare with no work requirement?
The majority of people getting Medicaid are over 50.
Why do some of your colleagues have a problem with that?
It doesn't make sense to me. Number one is if you don't want to work, you're the one that decided you don't want health care.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, Medicaid is supposed to be for children that don't have health care and people with chronic illness. I remember when my brother couldn't get health care, I grew up in public housing. Today, that child might not get it because of what these states are doing. They get more money to take care of able-bodied adults.
So are you...
All right, so pretty much everything he said there is a lie.
Yes.
The idea that Medicaid is only there if you're a child or you have chronic illness, there's absolutely no basis for that in the laws that govern Medicaid. It's for people who can't afford health care based on their income.
Right.
Full stop.
It's for people who don't have enough money. That's what it's for.
For people who don't have enough money. He's presenting it as if you're not in the category of chronic illness and you're not a child, you're defrauding the system by getting Medicaid. Just amazing. And able-bodied 30-year-olds. He didn't say that. The reporter did. That is not the vast majority of people who are on Medicaid. But of course, they have to set up this straw man.
And able-bodied is a red herring too, because it doesn't matter whether you're employed or unemployed. It's about your income. It's about your income. So if you have a shitty job that doesn't give health benefits, you need Medicaid because you don't have enough money to afford health insurance on the private market.
Just the idea that this sick son of a bitch who made his money by understaffing nurses, throwing sick people out on the street in hospital gowns, bribing doctors, and overbilling the Medicaid and Medicare system would go on to make this such a signature issue. You would think you'd want to stay away from those subjects after that. This is what I'm saying. He seems to have a real zest for denying people health care.
Right.
This is his life's work. This is what he got rich on. And he wants to keep doing it in the government. Just make sure if you're sick and you're not rich like me, you should die. Why aren't you dying? Why aren't you getting about the business of dying? So for Rick Scott, the $900 billion of cuts in the big beautiful bill wasn't enough. He introduced his own amendment to cut another $313 billion. The big beautiful bill did not go far enough for Rick Scott. So we actually have a little footage of a psychiatrist commenting on Rick Scott.
Oh, he's a monster. Pure psychopath. So rare to capture one alive.
Yeah, so there you go. There you have it from Dr. Chilton, Maryland Psychiatric Institute there, commenting on Rick Scott. Yeah, Rick Scott belongs in prison. And all of this conversation about lower class, powerless, working class people, immigrants, it is all designed to distract you from that. Even if you feel there are legitimate issues there, you don't think this guy is a bigger issue? Don't talk to me about immigrants until guys like Rick Scott are in prison. Don't talk to me about that while people like this are walking around rich, free, and in the government.
Empowered.
And in power. These people, this is what I've been saying throughout the show. Okay, well, so if you want to do something about illegal immigration, everything goes back to immigrants, this too. Oh, there are millions of immigrants getting illegal Medicaid. Okay, well, institute a federal E-Verify system and start arresting employers who employ illegal immigrants. But they're not going to do that because you know who those people are? Their class. They're donors, people like Rick Scott, people like Donald Trump, literally people like Donald Trump, who was in construction, who used undocumented workers when he had a construction company. They're not going to go after those people. It's all a show. It's all a show. The idea of people like this being treated as if they have any right to be talking about waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. How can you say that you're living in any way in a country that has laws in which you have any kind of a functioning system of justice if a criminal like Rick Scott can go on to be the governor and then the senator of the state of Florida and get away with what he did? How many people died because of what Rick Scott did? And to continue to be obsessed with taking healthcare away from people as like a signature issue in your political life, that is a deranged, dangerous psychopath. They're going to keep telling you Abrego Garcia is a danger to the community. This guy is a bigger danger to the community. Even if everything they said about Abrego Garcia was true, you would need 100,000 Abrego Garcias on the street to equal the amount of social damage Rick Scott free is doing.
Yeah, and yet Florida can't stop voting for this guy. They made him governor. They made him senator.
That's amazing.
You can't beat this guy in Florida.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the
yeah.
peasant
Why?
mind. Man, that's what we talk about. I mean, that's what that is. It's very pervasive, unfortunately. But yeah, no, he is just an absolute reptile. There's no doubt. Somebody
He
put
looks
in the
like
chat,
a reptile.
Yeah. Somebody put in the chat, not a super chat, but I caught it as a scroll by. It said Rick Scott smells with his tongue.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it. He's reptilian. Absolutely. Just look at his reaction to that lady in the coffee shop. Oh, you should learn the facts. You should go get a job. I mean, it's just utter contempt. And how little respect do you have for yourself if you vote for a guy like that?
That is just amazing. But that's where, in doing my research, I saw him making appearances on all the Griftiverse channels, all the Manosphere channels. Nobody asks him about this. They don't ask him about this. Why did you defraud I thought you guys all care about waste, fraud, and abuse. Well, so why you got Rick Scott on your show? That's the first thing you should bring up to him, but they never will.
No, never will. That is true. Stoop Sign says the official statement from Fire is that Fire does not necessarily support flag burning, but it will use itself to burn American flags. Haha, good one. I get it. 3 Tom the Bomb says my takeaway from the Garcia case is it's okay to traffic humans in BMS-13 as long as you don't protest against Israel. The inevitable social evolution of the human race is to communism. ACP.US. Thank you. Russ, just don't go to the shitty museum in St. Louis or shitty walk. Okay, thank you, Professor Brown. My real name says we must protect the sanctity of the American flag that was made in China. Yes, good point. Good point. Kenman G says, Russ, thank you so much for consistently criticizing Taylor Swift. I was starting to think I was crazy for thinking she's talentless. Thank you, Kenman G.
I said this a couple of years ago, and I think now we're pretty much here. That's music that could feasibly be made by a computer. Like there's
you can do AI for that. Yeah.
Now there's a whole channel that makes rather crude jokes where it does these retro songs of women singing very sexually, like context that never would have happened, like 1962 in a truck stop, right? They're doing that all with AI. Like I'm sure the music is written by AI. They're just putting in these very profane lyrics and telling it what style it wants.
Right.
So at that point,
Billie Holiday singing "Wet Ass Pussy" like that.
Basically, that's what they're doing. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Not real figures; they're making it up.
Oh, like a thing. Okay. Yeah.
And so the day that Mary Sue van der Leyen walked into the bar, she didn't expect. Right. So they do that. It's very crude. It's very childish. It's kind of funny, but yeah, if you could do that, then you can say to the AI, give me a song in the style of Taylor Swift about this. And it's only going to get better.
Right. Let's see. What do we got over here? We got on YouTube, Pete Sweet, thanks for the $10, says those who still support Trump, the textbook definition of a mark, a person who knowingly goes along with something illegal only to be deceived themselves. Saying goes, you can't cheat an honest man. Prester John, thanks for the $9.99. Republican fascism and Democrat cowardice create perfect conditions for a third party, so we gerrymander the most populous states into red-blue districts. I don't believe in coincidences anymore. All right, we'll move on to Richie Torres.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Those are back to
back.
These segments belong together.
That's right. Bitchy Torres and Rick Scott, a match made in heaven. So this was not too long after October 7th. PVT here. This account dropped this. On Monday, December 4th, Open Secrets listed Richie Torres contributions from pro-Israel lobbies at $342,017. 2 days later, they're at $734,251, with AIPAC contributions totaling $367,994. Torres took nearly $400,000 from pro-Israel lobbies in 2 days. His dumb tweets make sense now. What were those tweets at the time? Not everyone calling for a ceasefire wants Israel to cease to exist, but everyone who wants Israel to cease to exist is calling for a ceasefire. Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Islamic Republic of Iran are all calling for a ceasefire. See, that's how you make money.
Yeah.
The notion that Israel is committing genocide or ethnic cleansing is a blood libel. Ooh, that didn't age well.
Ooh.
It is a dangerous lie intended to incite hatred for Israel as a Jewish state, excepting the Jews who are speaking out. The kind of hatred that has driven extremists to celebrate, call for, or commit violence against Jews. Falsely accusing the historical victims of genocide of committing genocide themselves is as despicable as the accusers. Apparently, Richie Torres has never heard the phrase abused become abusers.
Right.
Israel has discovered 40 murdered babies so far. The deplorables who cannot bring themselves to condemn the murder of babies as barbaric are revealing themselves to be nothing short of barbaric. The defenders of baby killers are perpetuating oppression under the guise of liberation and terror under the guise of resistance. Now, of course, all of these claims have fake news labels slapped on them, which we know even more now than we did back then. The 40 beheaded baby story was pure propaganda. So here he is speaking at that ghastly rally that they had back in November 2024 about why he supports the Israeli state.
Now, people often ask me, Richie, you're not Jewish, you're black, you're Latino. Why do you speak out so forcefully and frequently against anti-Semitism? And I simply reply, the question is not why have I chosen to speak out? The question is why have others chosen to be silent amid the deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust? The answer to the question of why I choose to speak out lies in Torah. There's a passage in Torah that appears as an inscription in the Liberty Bell. It reads, "Proclaim liberty throughout all lands unto all inhabitants." The deeper message is that none of us is free until all of us are free. And so I see my freedom as a black Latino from the Bronx as inextricably bound to the freedom of the Jewish people. I see the security of my own nation and home, the United States of America, as inextricably bound to the security of the Jewish homeland. And I'm here to affirm that I am pro-Israel not despite my progressive values, but because of my progressive values. It is progressive to defend Israel's right to defend itself. It is progressive to stand for the U.S.-Israel relationship. It is progressive to demand the release of the hostages who must be brought home.
Okay. Well, I could tell Richie Torres as a Jewish person by continuing to prop up this genocidal apartheid terrorist state. You are not protecting me. You are putting me in danger. As we predicted from the beginning, actual anti-Semitism is becoming more normalized by the day as a result of Israel's actions. Israel's actions have created the greatest opportunity for anti-Semites to spread their worldview in modern history, I would say. I don't know what you could even compare it to. All of you've got the spectacle of the self-described Jewish nation committing a genocide and ethnic cleansing while clearly bribing politicians like Richie Torres. What more could you do to play to every negative stereotype that actual anti-Semites have been spreading forever, for centuries. You're playing to every anti-Semitic trope by supporting the state of Israel, particularly given the numbers involved in Torres's particular case. Case in point, Torres invested in weapons makers as he backed billions in arms for Israel. This just dropped on Sludge. While urging the White House to speed up bomb deliveries to Israel, Representative Richie Torres was also adding defense contractors like Lockheed and Northrop to his portfolio. In the months after Israel's assault on Gaza began, Torres became one of the most outspoken Democrats in Washington, demanding uninterrupted arms shipments, often breaking ranks with his Democratic colleagues. In October 2023, he signed a letter to President Biden opposing calls for de-escalation and urging an increase in weapons transfers. When Biden briefly paused shipments of 2,000-pound bombs in May 2024 out of concern they would be used in attacks on Rafah, Torres lashed out at the decision and even joined Republicans in backing a resolution to override it. Torres also voted for the $17 billion weapons package to Israel that passed Congress in April 2024, and he has consistently opposed Democratic calls for a ceasefire, arguing that any suspension of U.S. military aid would amount to siding with Hamas. After the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for Israeli leaders on charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity, Torres responded by voting with Republicans to sanction the court. All the while, Torres's recent financial disclosures show his portfolio was newly invested in the same companies whose products were being shipped to Israel. In a recently filed report, he disclosed stock purchases made in September 2024 in Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and L3 Harris, three of the largest U.S. weapons companies supplying Israel's military. The trades were not reported until nearly a year later, just like Rick Scott. See, Rick Scott probably gave him the idea. Don't bother. Worst comes to worst, you pay a $200 fine.
Right.
Far past the 45-day deadline required under the 2012 Stock Act. Torres had never previously disclosed owning corporate stocks before these purchases, and he has since amended his 2024 financial disclosure to reflect these holdings and others. The congressman's office tells Sludge the defense contractor stocks were bought by an independent manager and that he will no longer be buying individual corporate stocks. It's funny. That's what Rick Scott said. What Rick Scott said. He didn't know anything about these trades. He didn't know anything about it. But cha-ching. Remember back in 2023, what was it? He had gotten a total of 400,000 there. 1,570,275. He is raking in that sweet APAC cash. Now, we don't know Bitchy Torres personally. We have no way of knowing this for sure. It just does not seem really likely that a black gay Latino from the South Bronx just naturally has this overwhelming affinity for the state of Israel, for the Zionist project, to the degree that he's almost the Netanyahu of Democrats in Congress. He is just this bloodthirsty maniac for whom nothing is enough. And any attempt to put any limitation on Israel is too much. He recently did an interview, this is going around right now, where he blames Netanyahu for being mean to Obama. He feels that the problem that Israel is having now with Democrats goes back to that, because he feels Netanyahu then made support for Israel partisan. Absolutely nothing about what Israel is actually doing
Right.
The only reason that anyone has a problem in the Democratic Party with Israel is because they revere Barack Obama so much, and Netanyahu kind of trashed him in front of Congress at the invitation of the Republicans. If he hadn't done that, man, I mean, who knows with the Democrats? He's probably right with some of them. With some of them, it's probably true. But that's the closest he will get to criticizing Israel. Why? Again, we don't know him. You never know. People can be strange. But it looks like it's basically about the Benjamins.
Yeah, it always struck me as entirely transactional. It's one of the reasons I was always particularly repulsed by Torres, and why I was excited when Jose threw his hat in the ring to run against him, which he's doing again this time. But because Torres is a guy who, it's inconceivable to me. I think I said when I spoke at the Jose's fundraiser last year, he must not know or care anything about Israel or even Jewish people. He just knows who pays him. I mean, he supports mass murder for money.
Right.
And it's one thing to support mass murder for money when the dollars are going towards, your campaign and going towards your political future. But then on top of that, to like pad your own portfolio with like defense stocks, as we are sending weapons to Israel, and then urging that we keep sending the 2,000-pound bombs even when Biden suspended the shipments. I mean, you have to be completely psychotic. There's really no other word for it. Just a remorseless psychopath. That's who he is, which is why I always had particular disdain for him. Not that like a guy like Schumer is any better, but with a guy like Schumer, you could see he's probably brainwashed from childhood to be the way he is. Torres, it's just about, here's some money. Would you support genocide for a few $100,000? Yeah, sure. That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is.
Sure. Just make sure the check clears.
Exactly. So just a worthless fucking lowlife. And that is what caught my eye about him from day one. It always seemed way too bizarre that he's so vehemently pro-Israel. I don't buy it. I'm a New Yorker. I don't buy that. I don't buy it. Walk around the South Bronx. There's plenty of people with Richie Torres's demographic profile in the South Bronx. You see any Israel flags in the South Bronx? Is that actually Zionism? No, that's about the money. That's about he's taking money to support genocide. Just the lowest form of life on earth.
When we went to the Bronx to petition for Jose, I had a lot of people who didn't want to sign. People don't want to stop and sign stuff. And I found very quickly that the easiest way to get them to do it was to say he was pro-Palestine. And Richie Torres was pro-Israel. They go, he's pro-Palestine, and they would sign it.
Yep, exactly.
So who's he representing?
Right, obviously. Virtuoso, thanks for the $5, says I had one period of college prep and one period of political science, all within senior year of high school. Shows how much the Department of Education cares. Andy Gardner says Trump describing flag burning sounds like the butterfly effect leading to death. Maybe he's been sincere. Who knows? I'm constantly indifferent with my emotions these days. Kuznetsky Bassane, thanks for the $9.99 super sticker, and also for the chat. $700K seems cheap to buy a U.S. congressman. Maybe it's the tip of a future more lucrative sinecure. Well, proclaim liberty throughout all of the land until all the inhabitants thereof. What the fuck? And Palestine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, on Torres. Yeah, exactly. These bribes that they take, a lot of this money is not just for your campaign coffers while you're in office, but it's a signal that, hey, we're going to hook you up after you get out. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what a lot of it is, too.
Yep.
Right. So that's a huge part of it.
It's the revolving door, man.
That's right. The revolving door. Okay. All right. So, hey, folks, Thursday, we are doing our patron post game. So if you want to sign up and get access to that patron post game show this Thursday. Oops. Sorry. Wait a minute. That's no good. We don't want that. We want this. Sorry. I almost booted myself from the StreamYard. The way you can get access to that post-game show on Thursday, where we're going to do exclusive segments for the members plus a Q&A, is to join at one of these three platforms here: dudissidents.com/Patreon, Substack, or Locals. Perks are the same across all the platforms, starting at just $5 a month. You get one post-game show per month with call-in Q&A. You also get a movie club live stream, so you get bonus content. You get ad-free replays of every live stream emailed directly to you the day after they air online. So if you miss a show and you don't want to watch it back with the ad interruptions, for $5 a month, you get every show emailed to you to watch it ad-free at your convenience, just as if you're watching it live. You also get your name up in lights here on the patron scroll. You guys are the backbone of the show. The reason we did this St. Louis trip is because we had the infrastructure and the support that we build up through your membership. So it's just $5 a month. DoDissidents.com/Patreon, Substack, or Locals. The links are all right there. You can sign up. It's quick and easy to do so, and it's the best way to help support this project. So thank you all very much for your support. My real name says, can I have my Rumble Rant money back? I want to invest in the Rick Scott ETF. Donate. Thank you. My real name. Appreciate that. Professor Brown Note says, Moulin Spring, NBC Now. Our stock will rise high. A good Mr. Pitt reference there. Moulin Spring. Remember that one. Thank you, Professor Brown Note. Appreciate that. All right. Let's take a look over here on the YouTube side of things. You got Jack Carolyn. Thanks for the $5.99. Says, remember in Dirty Harry when the police blew up a Scorpio and the bus full of kids who he was using as humanist shields? Thank you for that, Jack Carolyn. Haven't heard from you in a while, Jack. But Jack submitted a blog to us way back a few years ago about, I think it was Liz Truss. We're going to get our blog going very soon again. So if you want to get back in touch, if you have any writings, we will be interested to read those, Jack. All right, we got another Rumble rant, which I'll copy and paste over here. We'll read that after this one last segment of the day. So we'll take any remaining super chats and Rumble rants after this, our last piece of the day here. All right, folks. So this is kind of a quick one, but this one was kind of too bizarre not to do. So, you want to know how the sausage is made, folks? Here's how the sausage is made. Here's Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, in a meeting with an Israeli rabbi who thanks Trump and the American people for joining in Israel's war on Iran. Very normal stuff.
The rabbi wants to express his gratitude, his thanks to President Donald Trump and to the American people for their steadfast support of the Jewish people, and particularly in this last war with Iran, and expresses thanks and gratitude.
Thank you, Rabbi. And
I mean, this is like, if Darrow Cooper created an AI prompt, right, to spread as many anti-Semitic conspiracy theories as he could, this is what he would come up with. Now, let's have the ambassador sit down with this rabbi who then thanks him for fighting Israel's wars for them. Wow. But that was only the beginning. This is the clip that went really viral from this across multiple channels, where Huckabee just really lets his freak flag fly. And, the more we see of Huckabee, the more convinced we are that he is not Richie Torres. He is not doing this for the money. He is a true believer, a true end times, biblical prophecy fanatic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, he's not doing it for the money. No.
So this is really who he is here. You are the chosen people, and if someone is angry at God, he'll be angry at the people who represent him. U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee tells Rabbi in Israel that people are only anti-Semitic because they're against God.
Ambassador has a very interesting view of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Rosh Hashiva grew up in America. There was anti-Semitism, of course. I've experienced it, we've all experienced it. The ambassador has a very interesting view of that. He says you can't understand anti-Semitism. If the people who are anti-Semitic, it's because they're against God, they're against the Rabbi Shalom. And we are represented as his people, and that's why they're anti-Semitic. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Interesting view.
It's an interesting view. There's another view that since we consider the chosen people, so people are very. Who are you? What are you? Where are you taking big shots? chosen people.
And that's part of it, is that because you are the chosen people, given a chosen place for a chosen purpose. And if someone is angry at God, he'll be angry at the people who represent him.
That's right.
So I tell people anti-Semitism is irrational. There's no reason for it unless you understand the spiritual reason, which is what I believe is at the heart of it. It is not the left versus the right. It is good versus evil. It is the Creator versus those who rebel against the Creator.
Okay, now, of course, we understand that, Mike Huckabee's interest in promoting Israel is to get as many Jews as possible to move there so that the Messiah could return. Mm-hmm. At which point, well, who's the anti-Semite on that day? You know what I mean? Like, it's just so perverse. And what you see here is, I'm sure these rabbis understand that. I mean, they understand who they're dealing with in Mike Huckabee. That doesn't bother them? No, because he helps them fulfill their earthly aims, right? It's such a sinister and cynical arrangement on both ends, because Huckabee's buttering them up because you got to get as many Jews back to Israel so that Jesus can come back and throw them all into the lake of fire. And they're like, yeah, we know that, but we don't really believe Jesus is coming back, and we just need to bomb Iran. So if you're going to help us do that, then there we go. We got a deal.
You believe whatever cockamamie stuff about the Messiah you want, just give us the weapons.
Right, exactly. Like, it's such a charade. It's such an act that both sides put on, and they both benefit. But, in Huckabee's case, you could have seen this coming. So this was wild. So got to credit Michael Tracy back in 2024 for finding this. Mike Huckabee, Trump's pick for ambassador to Israel, has been the spokesman for an Israeli relief organization that solicits donations from American evangelicals for the purpose of fulfilling biblical prophecy. Yeah, exactly. So here he is putting his cards on the table. That's why, like, when these clips went viral, I'm like, well, you could have seen this coming. So here he was. This had to be a while ago because he was had a lot of weight on him that he doesn't have now. And
it was before he went on the GLPs.
Yeah, exactly. And no facial hair. But this is quite something. This just gives you a window into what we just saw, an insight into what we just saw.
The Bible tells us that God promises to bless those who bless Israel. Hello, I'm Mike Huckabee. TBN believes that supporting Israel is one of the most meaningful things a believer can do. And that's why, after a lot of research and vetting, we're partnering with Israel's most impactful relief organization, the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews.
BlessGodsPeople.org.
35 years ago, my father founded the fellowship to fulfill biblical prophecy, to help the suffering Jews, and to let them know that there are Christians who stand by their side.
Today, through over 400 projects, the fellowship is serving Israel's impoverished Jews and Holocaust survivors.
Unfortunately, 20% of Israelis still live in poverty. But as you can see, we're working hard to help them.
Please call or go online right now, because your gift of $25 helps provide soup kitchens like these and so much more for the blessing of God's people here in Israel.
Isaiah 58 reminds us to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, to house the homeless, and thankfully we do just that because of generous friends like you.
Food, housing, medical care, bringing home the displaced, it's all part of the fellowship's mission. I love traveling the streets Jesus once walked and bringing the least of these the hope and joy that the fellowship provides.
Hi, Sarah. Shalom.
Hello. Shalom.
Shalom. This is Sarah. She's 81 years old and she fled persecution in Iraq. And if it weren't for this food box, Sarah wouldn't eat today.
You can bless people just like Sarah. Your gift provides food, medicine, and comfort to God's precious people. Please call or go online today.
I wonder if they're still in business. BlessGodsPeople.com.
I thought our taxes pay for all that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, not enough. Not enough. He wants evangelicals to show their solidarity with the Israelis. So, yeah, I mean, that's his background going back a long time. It all culminated in this. This is why he was Trump's perfect pick for ambassador to Israel. They'll give him what he wants, if he'll give them what they want. In his case, he actually believes it. Like, he actually wants it. Like, I think he is actually a man on a mission. This is why we said he is such a dangerous pick for this job, because this guy really does believe in kooky fairy tale type shit. And to have that guy, not running Israeli policy officially, but you saw how much Donald Trump, you saw how much time Donald Trump spends chewing over the issues with that signing of the executive order that he didn't even bother reading. To have this guy in such a prominent position at a time like this, at a time of war, at a time when Israel is telling the world that they are, expanding the Greater Israel Project in keeping with, a certain biblical foretelling. Yeah, very dangerous stuff. And that shows you Huckabee's background and who he is, which makes that new clip that went viral not as surprising as you might think.
Well, it's what $100 million buys you.
Yep.
Buys you a fanatical Christian Zionist as the ambassador to Israel. What's really interesting, I mean, Huckabee would never be sitting down with anyone who would ask him this question. If you really believe that the Jews are the chosen people, why don't you convert?
Right.
Why doesn't Huckabee become a Jew? Don't you want to be chosen?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
What's wrong with being a chosen person if you don't see them as Jesus bait?
Right. Yeah, that would be an interesting question. That would be an interesting question to ask him, actually. I'd like to hear somebody ask Huckabee why he doesn't convert to Judaism.
Right.
Because how do you answer?
They're the chosen people.
How do you answer that without being honest about what your actual aims are as a true believer, which I believe Huckabee is. All indications are that he is.
Yeah.
All right. Eric Torres says these Christians can't even get their lore right. Thank you, Eric Torres. Appreciate that very much. All right. Let me do one more of these, then we'll get to the rest of our chats here. I saw that up here. Yeah, Westwood 1's gunning hard for football season. Here we go. Right. Set your clocks, mark your calendars, and buckle up for the best NFL primetime football action. Starting September 4th on Westwood 1, you can catch all the bone-crushing hits, last-second heroics, and edge-of-your-seat action that NFL Thursday, Sunday, and Monday nights have to offer. Whether you're tailgating, driving, or chilling at home, don't miss a single snap. Listen on the NFL app, the Westwood 1 Sports app at westwood1sports.com, or just say, Alexa, open Westwood 1 Sports. If it's the NFL, it's on Westwood 1. Okay, great. All right, let's see what else we got here. Spartan Sandukar says the people have no idea how good things could be if we have very moral and very smart people in charge. We live in abundance, but evil banking parasites steal 90% of the wealth. Taxes on top of taxes. Thank you. My real name says, good Lord, they turned Huckabee into Gollum. Thank you, my real name. Eric Rousseau says, I was really hoping that I would see them all loogie on Huckabee out of respect, though. Huckabee says, I'm committed to Israel, and the rabbis have gave me an authentic Jewish circumcision. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we can ask him that, too. That would be another related question.
Foreskin?
Yeah, do you have foreskin? Yeah, just wondered. Virtuoso says, let Mike Huckabee work. He's corralling all the Ziontologists to Israel to live out the prophecy via Iran dropping the big nuki dookie on them. Well, yeah, that's another prophecy that may come true. Andy Gardner says, save a starving Israeli. Wow, in these times. Well, that was not in these times, but it was under the same dynamic. Yes, that was probably if I had to guess, that was about 15 years ago that he did that ad. But yeah, and that's why he was picked. That's why they recruited him. This is why the Israelis were so excited about the prospect of Donald Trump winning, because we're going to get this fucking guy. We're just going to get a guy who is not only committed to Israel as a political matter, but as a spiritual matter. A guy who has, apocalyptic convictions in that way, for sure. All right, that is our show, it seems. Well, thank you guys all very much for being here. We will start at 1 p.m. on Thursday, and then we will have a post game afterwards for members. So please, yes, patreon.com/do dissidents if you want to sign up. It helps out tremendously. And we are do we want to give any updates in terms of the filming schedule? It's not quite nailed down yet, but it should be nailed down. I think our plan is to get back going on Friday, I think, and get plenty more.
It's looking that way. It's looking that way. We should be able to sit down with the chairman on Friday.
Yep. So that'll be a huge interview. And we will hopefully, if we can work it out where the cloud gives us access to some footage, then we can show some in the coming days on the following shows. So thank you all very much for being here. Thanks to the YouTubers. Thanks to the Rumblers. Thanks to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat. We will see you all Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Applejack is on the Misty Winston show tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern on Rumble. So make sure you're following our Rumble channel if you are not already. So tune in for Misty tomorrow, and then we'll see you Thursday afternoon. Until then, thanks everybody very much for spending the afternoon with us today. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.